The first part of the immortal Raven Bolt, a feared demon protector warrior, begins with a brutal display of his fighting skills. We see him effortlessly slaughtering a horde of monsters, his scars a testament to the battles he has fought. But beneath his fierce exterior lies a past filled with pain and loss. As Raven makes his way through the hunter's camp, a place where criminals and slaves are sent to fight monsters without reprieve, he is confronted by a group of troublemakers. With swift and deadly precision, Raven dispatches them, leaving their leader begging for mercy. But Raven is not one to dwell on such encounters, and he continues on his journey, lost in thought about his past. It is revealed that Raven was once a noble, living a life of privilege and luxury. But 10 years ago, his family was falsely accused of rebellion and brutally executed. Raven, the sole survivor, has dedicated himself to clearing his family's name and seeking justice for their deaths. Despite the trials he has faced, he remains determined to see his quest through to the end. With each step he takes, the weight of his past bears down upon him. But Raven is a warrior at heart, and he will not be defeated by his grief. He continues to fight, not just against the monsters that threaten the land, but against the injustices that have plagued his life. He is immortal Raven Bolt, a demon protector, a warrior, and a man on a mission. As Raven stood before the executioner, ready to pay the price for a crime he did not commit, a glimmer of hope appeared in the form of an offer. He would be given a chance to live, but it came at a steep cost. Raven was to be sent to the monster hunter camp, where he would be forced to fight for his survival for the next 10 years. But this was not a death sentence, it was an opportunity. Raven accepted the offer, vowing to use the time to restore his family's honor and return to seek revenge. 10 years have passed since that fateful day, and Raven now stands at the brink of his freedom. One final task remains before he can leave the camp, a task that will test his strength and determination. And to his surprise, he will not be alone in this task. He is to be assisted by none other than the famous Pendragon family, known for their ability to control a white dragon. Dragons were beings of immense power, even stronger than the strongest demons. The Pendragon family's ability to tame such creatures gave them great influence in the empire. Raven couldn't understand why a noble family would bother to help him, a mere criminal, but he knew he would not question his luck. With the Pendragon family by his side, Raven sets out to complete his final task and reclaim his freedom. But as they journey together, he cannot shake the feeling that there is more to this alliance than meets the eye. The road ahead may hold surprises and challenges, but Raven is a warrior, and he is determined to see his quest through to the end. As Raven and the Pendragon family prepared for the final task, he met the young master of the Pendragon family, and was struck by his composure and maturity. Though he had heard rumors of the young master being a brat, he couldn't help but feel that there was more to him than meets the eye. The day of the battle arrived, and as the young master and his white dragon entered the battlefield, the entire army, including Raven, were left in awe by their majestic presence. The battle began, and at first, it seemed as though victory was within their grasp, thanks to the dragon's powerful abilities. But just as they were gaining momentum, a horde of monsters descended upon them, attacking relentlessly. Raven watched in confusion as the white dragon, seemingly unfazed, let the monsters attack it without retaliation. He couldn't understand why the dragon wasn't fighting back, and began to fear that the tide of the battle had turned against them. But as the young master and his dragon continued to hold their ground, Raven couldn't help but wonder, what was the true nature of their power, and what secrets did they hold? As Raven fought desperately to protect the young master, Alan, from the monsters, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of betrayal. He had trusted the young master and his dragon, but they seemed to be doing nothing to aid in the battle. He turned to Alan, demanding an explanation for the dragon's inaction, but before he could get an answer, he was stabbed in the back by none other than the captain of the monster hunters camp, Baltimore. Raven couldn't understand how the captain, who was supposed to be on their side, could have betrayed them in such a way. Baltimore explained that the Raven family's false accusation of mutiny had been a part of a larger plan, orchestrated by him and those in power. As Raven lay dying, he watched in shock as Baltimore beheaded Alan. And in his final moments, the captain revealed his true purpose, to sacrifice 1,000 human lives, 1,000 demon lives, 1,000 royal lives, and 1,000 dragon lives to appease the ancient dragon god, in order for the sun and moon to meet in the sky. As Raven's life slipped away, he saw the white dragon let out a beam of light that illuminated his and Alan's bodies. And with it, the dragon spoke its final words. "I will leave everything to you, Dragon Rider." Suddenly, Raven found himself in a strange place, surrounded by a golden yellow light. He couldn't understand what was happening, but he knew that his journey was far from over. He had been given a second chance, and he would not let it go to waste. As Raven awoke and opened his eyes, he found himself in a room, confused and disoriented. He asked a maid where he was and was told that he was in the Pendragon family's castle. As he looked at his reflection in the basin, he was shocked to see the face of Alan Pendragon staring back at him. It was then that he realized that 3 years had passed since the incident in which he was killed. The maid, flustered by Raven's behavior, tried to calm him and inform him of the situation, but before she could say more, Alan's mother entered the room in a hurry, followed by a mysterious old woman. Raven, still in a state of confusion, asked who the woman was, but instead of answering, she gestured towards the window. To his amazement, he saw a white dragon outside. It was Soldrake. He couldn't believe that the dragon was still alive, and it made him question everything he thought he knew. As Soldrake attempted to break into Alan's room, Alan's mother stepped forward to protect her child, declaring she will not let him hurt Alan again. Before Soldrake could do anything, the mysterious old woman was able to calm him down, and with that, she disappeared before Raven's eyes, leaving him more confused than ever. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew that his journey was far from over and there are many secrets to be uncovered. As Raven came to terms with his new identity as Alan, he knew that he had to act quickly and gather information. He used the excuse of memory loss to explain his behavior, and started to learn more about Alan's life and the Pendragon family. He knew that this was his second chance to do something he couldn't before. As he remembered his previous life and the struggles he faced at the monster hunter camp, he realized that he had been given a gift. 7 years before he was killed, he was back in life and in the body of the young master of the powerful Pendragon family. He knew that he had to use this opportunity to correct the wrongs that had been done to him and his family. Adjusting to the life of an elite aristocrat was not easy for Raven. He was used to fighting for survival, and the luxurious lifestyle of the Pendragon family felt out of place. The constant presence of servants, who were there to attend to his every need, made him feel uncomfortable. He knew that he had to put his past behind and embrace this new life, but it would not be easy. As Raven settled into his new life as Alan, he met his younger sisters, Elena and Irene. Through their interactions and some flashbacks, he began to understand more about his past life. Alan, before his body was possessed by Raven, was not a warrior prince like his ancestors. He was more interested in the arts and the cultivation of the land. His lack of sword skills and martial abilities made him a target of ridicule among the nobles, and it caused a loss of honor for the Pendragon family. Raven knew that he had to change that and restore the family's honor. One day, his sisters came to visit him with an urgent message. Alan's fiancée, Luna, was coming to visit him. Alan was confused, as he had no memory of his past engagement. Irene explained that Luna was his fiancée, chosen for him by his family for the sake of political alliances. The scene shifts to Luna's journey to meet Alan. Along the way, she was instigated by her head guard, Joseph Bryden, to question her engagement and her future with Alan. Luna was filled with doubts and worries about meeting Alan. She felt that her arranged marriage would be a fate worse than death. It was clear to Luna that her head guard, Joseph, had feelings for her, and he advised her to leave Alan, but she refused his interference. But at the same time, she was also considering the same thing. Luna considered Alan and his family as useless, because the Pendragon family's power was starting to decline, and also because Alan failed to make a pact with Soldrake. As they arrived at the castle, Luna greeted Alan's mother and his sisters, and they seemed quite familiar with her. At first, she still thought that Alan was the same person as before, but as she spent time with him, she realized that he had changed. The Alan she met now was different, confident, and self-assured. Alan took Luna to talk alone in his room. Luna was very confused by these changes in Alan. He went from a timid, shy person who did not dare to look others in the eye, to someone who carried himself with certainty and assertiveness. This sudden change caught Luna off guard and left her wondering about Alan's true identity. Initially, Luna had planned to tell Alan that their engagement would be called off, but after seeing his changes, she was filled with doubts. Suddenly, Alan's maid, Lindsay, entered and informed them that Luna's head guard was causing a commotion in the main hall. Luna and Alan went to the main hall, where Luna's head guard informed them that the engagement would be called off and that Luna's family would compensate by giving a crystal mine and 2 lumber mills. This offer was not accepted well by Alan's mother, who considered it as a lowering of the Pendragon family's pride. The Pendragon family was currently facing financial difficulties, making the compensation offer more appealing. Alan, however, surprised everyone by agreeing to cancel the engagement, stating that he wanted to focus on rebuilding the Pendragon family. Luna, on the other hand, was filled with regrets as she had started to develop feelings for Alan. As they were discussing, Joseph tried to make himself look better than Alan in front of the gathering, but Alan immediately kicked him out for insulting his family. In that moment, Alan showed his integrity and determination to protect his family's honor. It was a moment that impressed Luna. It made her see Alan in a different light. She couldn't help but admire his strength and determination. After everything was settled, Alan and Lindsay were walking through the castle's corridors. Alan noticed a painting of a mysterious old woman and asked Lindsay who she was. Lindsay replied that she was Aisha Pendragon, the older sister of Alan's father. As they were talking, Aisha appeared in front of Alan and they had a private conversation. Aisha revealed that she was a ghost and only Alan could see her. Aisha also asked him who he really was, as she had been told by Soldrake that Alan was not the real Alan. Raven was surprised that Aisha knew his true identity, but he explained to her the events that had led to his possession of Alan's body. Aisha was confused as it was impossible for the person Raven met to be the real Alan, as at that time Alan was in a coma after failing to tame Soldrake. Nevertheless, Aisha believed that it was not important anymore. She asked Raven to tame Soldrake and open the mausoleum, an ancient tomb where the ancestors' souls, fortune, power, ancestral blessings and the familiar spirit of Soldrake were enshrined. The mausoleum also holds the secrets of the Pendragon family, and is kept by a mediator. The opening of this tomb would bring great benefits to the family and restore their power. Raven was willing to help. He understood that this was his chance to make things right and redeem himself. In simple terms, opening the mausoleum would result in a significant increase in the wealth of the Pendragon family, while not opening it would have the opposite effect. Therefore, opening the mausoleum was of utmost importance, and could only be done by a skilled warrior who was able to overcome Soldrake's powerful authority and successfully make a pact with him. Alan knew that he had to become stronger, and began training to improve his physical abilities. He also prepared an army to escort him to the mausoleum. At first, the head of the troops was skeptical of Alan's plan and his current abilities, but Alan asked for a one-on-one duel with the head guard to prove himself. During the duel, the head guard was surprised by Alan's strength, and he quickly defeated the head of the Pendragon army with s. The troops were shocked and finally willing to follow Alan towards the mausoleum. Meanwhile, Luna was still at the Pendragon castle. Initially, Luna's head guard had asked her to return home immediately, but Luna wanted to see Alan's abilities and his new personality. She was curious about the changes that had happened to Alan, and wanted to be a part of the journey to open the mausoleum. As Alan led the Pendragon army towards the mausoleum, Luna decided to join the journey, much to the anger of Joseph, her caretaker. The journey was not easy, as they encountered several monsters along the way, but Alan, who had become much stronger, easily defeated them. After a long journey, they arrived at the gates of the Berlin fortress, which marked the border between the kingdom and the forest. However, the situation inside the fortress was dire as the soldiers who were supposed to be guarding it had become bandits. Upon hearing this news, Alan was furious and determined to teach the bandits a lesson. However, the bandits, who had heard of Alan's arrival, were not afraid and instead wanted to torture him. But Alan, with his newfound strength and experiences, he led the troops and take over the fort. He killed all the bandits, and re-established the fort as the fortress it's supposed to be. He sent some of his troops to keep the fort, and securing it. With the fort secured, Alan and his companions continued their journey towards the mausoleum, with the determination to open it, and restore the Pendragon family's honor. Alan's mother, who was worried about Alan's safety, had also sent prayers for his safe return. With a fierce determination in his heart, Alan made plans with Chief Warrior Pendragon and Luna's chief bodyguard to take down the bandits. The head of the Pendragon tank troop informed them that the bandits were a formidable enemy, numbering 20 strong and led by a skilled swordsman named Delgo Fade. Alan learned that Fade had betrayed his family by seizing the title and 3 realms when Alan had been in a coma, and his mother had refused to relinquish them. Determined to put an end to Fade's treachery, Alan divided his troops into 2 groups, with Luna's chief bodyguard leading one and Chief Warrior Pendragon leading the other. After carefully outlining the plan of attack, Alan instructed his warriors to rest and prepare for the coming battle. As the head guard was leaving, Alan paused and apologized for an incident that had occurred between them. He admitted that he had punched the head guard in the face and expressed remorse for his actions. The head guard, touched by Alan's apology, forgave him and promised to fight by his side until the end. The next day, the bandits launched a brutal attack on the village, punishing the innocent residents and laying waste to the surrounding area. Their goal was clear: to conquer the fort and take control of the realm, as well as capture Alan's mother, Mrs. Helena. Meanwhile, Alan had arrived at the village, accompanied by his trusted head guard. They were discussing strategy when they were ambushed by two monsters, Happy and Goblin. But Alan was not easily defeated. With lightning-fast reflexes, he captured the monsters and decided to make them his subordinates. Sir Killian and the soldiers were surprised and shocked. They had never heard of a demon being able to work with them. Alan then threatened the masters to take him to a soldier who had turned into a bandit. As they approached the bandit's base, Alan ordered all the soldiers to be on alert and launched a surprise attack. Luna, who was behind the line, was worried about Alan's condition, knowing that this was his first time going to war. But Alan was not fazed. He was determined to end this conflict once and for all. The bandit's chief was caught off guard, in the middle of torturing a child when the attack came. He was about to strike the child, but suddenly his hand was cut off. The bandit named Jeffrey was taken aback when he saw Alan approaching. Filled with fear and desperation, Jeffrey ordered his men to attack Alan, but Alan effortlessly dispatched them all. However, just as Alan was about to take down Jeffrey, Luna's head guard intervened, wanting to prove himself better than Alan. Luna, who witnessed this, immediately stepped forward to protect Alan. With the head guard's intervention, Jeffrey regained his confidence and launched an attack on Alan, with Luna's head guard also joining in. But Alan emerged victorious, his skills and determination unmatched. Alan saw that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, and so he told Luna to leave immediately, concerned for her safety. The odds were now stacked against Alan, with Jeffrey and Luna's head guard fighting against him in a 2-versus-1 battle. They believed that they had the upper hand, considering Alan's lack of combat experience, but they were gravely mistaken. Alan was driven by adrenaline and battled fiercely, easily deflecting their attacks, and even breaking the head guard's sword. With precision and skill, Alan moved behind the Luna guard's head and delivered a powerful kick, sending him flying into Jeffrey. With the Luna guard momentarily incapacitated, Alan swiftly disarmed him and chased him out of Pendragon's territory. The Luna guard, tears streaming down his face, ran away in defeat, humiliated by his loss to Alan. The bandit leader Jeffrey, believing he still had the upper hand, threatened Alan, warning him that he still had many comrades. Alan smiled, unfazed by the threat, and replied that he did not come alone. Just then, the Pendragon army, led by the formidable Sir Killian, emerged from the shadows and began to massacre the remaining bandits. In the face of the overwhelming force, Jeffrey had no choice but to surrender. Alan tied him up in the middle of the hall and declared victory. The villagers, who had suffered greatly under the bandits' cruel rule, emerged from hiding to witness the scene. Many of them had been tortured and killed, and the hall was filled with their skeletons. With no mercy, Alan asked the villagers to decide on the punishment for the bandits' crimes. Jeffrey died due to the severe beating inflicted by the villagers. With their mission accomplished, Alan and his troops headed back to the mausoleum, victorious. The moral lesson of the story is to persevere and never give up in the face of adversity. Additionally, it is important to not judge someone based on rumors and appearances, as they might be different than they seem. The second part of White Dragon Duke Pendragon begins by showing the conquest of the mausoleum at the Pendragon residence loomed closer. Alan and Atia met to finalize their plans. They had decided to utilize the Ancona orcs as reinforcements, but Alan still had doubts about the effectiveness of this strategy. He questioned Atia on their decision to use the Ancona orcs, to which Atia responded that their combat abilities far exceeded that of the common orcs and would be a valuable asset in their conquest. Despite Atia's assurance, Alan was not convinced. He feared that the orcs only cared about slaughter and would not be reliable allies. Atia reassured him that the orcs would submit to beings far more powerful than themselves and that the pinnacle of their strength was the dragon, Soul Drake. Unfortunately, Alan had failed to make a contract with Soul Drake and would have to rely on his own skills to convince the orcs to fight alongside them. Atia then asked Alan if he had ever fought orcs before, to which Alan replied that during his early days in the Hunter Camp unit, he had fought an orc and managed to defeat it with great difficulty. Despite his earlier doubts, Alan now felt confident in his ability to handle orcs with ease. Atia's excitement grew as she heard of Alan's previous victory against orcs. The story then shifts to Alan's current location, on the edge of the Ancona forest. However, Sir Killian opposed Alan's plan to use the orcs as allies. Alan argued that moving forward with their current strength would be a great difficulty, as the Ancona forest was teeming with various kinds of monsters, and in order to minimize casualties, they needed powerful warriors like the orcs. The soldiers who accompanied Alan agreed with Sir Killian's concerns. They were afraid that they would be massacred by the orcs if they were to fight them. Just as Alan and the others were discussing the matter, they were startled by a frightened voice, belonging to Bryden, who screamed, As the story unfolds, a goblin that Alan had brought along informed him that there were Ancona orcs nearby where Bryden was. Without hesitation, Alan rushed to the location where Bryden and the orcs were. Bryden, who was in the middle of dealing with the orcs, was trembling with fear as he brandished his sword. The orcs were bullying him, and he was unable to defend himself. Hearing this, Alan quickly arrived on the scene. Upon seeing Alan, Bryden immediately ran to him seeking protection. Alan, surprised by Bryden's cowardice, questioned how someone like him could be a knight. As Alan and his troops arrived at the location, the orcs immediately noticed the Pendragon flag that the troops carried. They recognized Alan as the man they had long wanted to meet, the leader of the Pendragon family. The orcs then emitted a bright aura that left everyone around them paralyzed. Even Sir Killian was frightened and asked Alan to withdraw his troops. However, Alan was unfazed by the aura and remained calm and determined. Without hesitation, Alan approached the group of orcs unarmed. He declared confidently that he will take all of the orcs himself. The orcs were provoked by Alan's boldness and turned their attention towards him. Without hesitation, Alan headbutted the leader of the orcs, sending him crashing to the ground and bleeding from the nose. Sir Killian and the other orcs were shocked by the sudden turn of events. However, the strange thing was that the other orcs weren't angry, but they laughed when they saw their friend fall to an ordinary human. The orc leader that Alan had knocked down was named Karta, and he was furious. He then asked Alan what they were doing there. Alan retorted, asking the orcs what they were doing outside the forest, as according to the contract with the Pendragon, they were not allowed to leave the forest. The orcs replied that it was Alan's fault, as he had neglected the guardian deity, Soldrake. The orcs admitted that they refused to submit to weak humans, and that was the reason they left the forest. They wanted to taste blood and fight freely, while taking control of the territory. Recognizing the orcs' thirst for battle, Alan proposed the one-on-one duel to Karta, the leader of the orcs. Karta welcomed Alan's challenge, and both of them put down their weapons and decided to fight hand-to-hand. The duel between Alan and Karta began. Karta threw a powerful punch, but Alan was able to expertly dodge it. The two of them engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand combat, both determined to come out as the victor. As he fought the orcs, Alan thought to himself that if he was an ordinary human, his bones would surely be crushed. The orcs launched repeated attacks, but Alan expertly dodged them using his feet to emit a powerful wave. As the battle progressed, Alan realized that the orcs were not using all of their strength. Karta, the orc leader, explained that if he used all of his strength, an ordinary human would die instantly. Alan smiled confidently, challenging Karta to use all of his strength against him. Provoked by Alan's challenge, the orcs unleashed their full power, their movements so fast that they managed to scratch Alan's cheek, forcing him to retreat. Alan could clearly feel the orcs' strength and speed increasing rapidly. The orcs launched another attack, but this time Alan blocked it with his hands. Karta's attack hit Alan, but to the orcs' surprise, Alan did not show any signs of defeat. As the battle continued, Alan emerged victorious, but with a bloody fist. His body felt different, as the opponents he had faced were far weaker than the orcs. His soldiers looked worried upon seeing the blood on Alan, while the orcs were shocked that he was still standing. Sir Killian, observing Alan's condition, immediately ordered his troops to protect Alan, but Alan commanded them to stay in their positions and not interfere. Sir Killian had no choice but to obey Alan's orders. The orcs, impressed by Alan's resilience, said that he was the first human who could survive a direct hit from them. However, they believed that it was only a matter of time before Alan's head wound worsened. Hearing the orcs' underestimation, Alan displayed his ability to regenerate, and the wound on his forehead quickly healed. The orcs were in awe, they had never seen a human with such powers before. Karta was amazed by Alan's abilities and became even more intrigued by him. The orcs, without hesitation, attacked Alan, but he easily avoided their attacks by jumping and moving behind them. This time, Alan felt that it would be very easy to defeat the orcs. He had the power of regeneration, and the orcs' mindset was simple and easy for him to predict. Alan began to provoke the orcs by taunting them. The angered orcs then executed a very powerful kick, but Alan successfully blocked it with his arm. Sir Killian and the others were sure that Alan would not be able to withstand the orcs' kicks, but Alan managed to catch the legs of the orcs and immobilize them. Then, Alan delivered a powerful kick of his own, aimed at the orc's face. The orc, whose legs were held, couldn't dodge Alan's attack. With a powerful kick, Alan managed to land his foot on Karta's face, sending him crashing to the ground. Everyone present, including the other orcs, were amazed by Alan's abilities. The other orcs immediately cheered in amazement as Karta, their leader, was defeated by an ordinary human. Sir Killian approached Alan and checked on him, Alan told him that he was fine and didn't feel any significant pain. However, Sir Killian was still worried about Alan's condition, but Alan reassured him that his regeneration ability was far more painful than the injuries he had suffered. To everyone's surprise, Alan's hands quickly returned to normal. He then approached Carta and asked him to submit to him. Carta, impressed by Alan's abilities, willingly submitted to him. Alan then made a request of the orcs to help him conquer the Ancona forest and open the mausoleum. Carta, shocked by Alan's request, asked if he wanted to make a pact with the guardian deity, Soldrake. Alan agreed, and warned that a horde of evil monsters would appear and try to stop them, but he assured that the orcs would find them as an entertainment as they could fight them every day. Hearing Alan's offer, the orcs were overjoyed at the prospect of being able to fight every day. Alan then took a sword and swore an oath of loyalty from the orcs, asking them to pledge their devotion to the Pendragon family and use all of their strength. With this, Alan successfully recruited the orcs as his subordinates. Luna, who had watched Alan defeat the orcs and turn them into allies, became more interested in him and began to develop feelings for him. However, Luna had to return to her kingdom, so Alan provided her with troops to escort her safely. He also warned Bryden not to cross him again. Bryden, receiving threats from Alan, could only keep quiet and lower his head. With his new orc troops, Alan continued his journey towards the mausoleum. As Alan and his group prepared to leave, Luna tried to say something but was held back. She could only watch as Alan left. After a long journey, Alan and his team finally reached the Ancona forest at night. Everyone was worried, but Alan and the orcs were excited. Inwardly, Alan thought that the inevitable battle was about to begin. At the mausoleum, Soldrake could sense Alan's presence, and she challenged Alan to find the entrance to the mausoleum, knowing that Alan currently did not possess the soul of a Pendragon. In the Ancona Valley, the orcs were busy battling snake monsters that were attacking them. They were growing weary of the constant attacks. One of the snakes tried to attack Alan's soldiers, but he managed to cut it down and save his soldiers. The soldier was extremely grateful to Alan. Alan then assigned Kratul, an orc, to take care of the wounded soldiers. It turned out that Kratul had an incredibly effective medicine for healing the wounded soldiers. Suddenly, Sir Killian came and reported on the condition of his troops. Alan then asked Carta how much longer it would take to reach Soldrake. Carta said that Soldrake's residence was near a mine, not far from their current location. Alan was concerned that the mining area might be in danger, but Carta reassured him that the mining area was still within the territory of the orcs. With that, Alan ordered his troops to set up camp at the mine and prepare to head to the mausoleum as soon as the sun rose. As the sun set, Alan's party finally arrived at the mine. The noise in the mine was so terrifying that it made Sir Killian and the orcs uneasy. Alan felt something was off as the mine was sealed. According to Carta, goblins used to frequent the mine to mine, but there were rumors that they had suddenly disappeared all at once and never returned. He glanced at Kazal, the goblin they brought with them, who panicked and said that he had never lived in this forest and had no information. Alan decided that they would not leave this place during sunset and asked the orcs to stand guard. As night fell, Alan ordered Sir Killian to set up tents for his troops to rest for the night. As the soldiers rested, one of the guards on duty heard a strange sound and went to investigate. Suddenly, a giant scythe impaled him and he was killed. But before he took his last breath, the soldier muttered a few words. Meanwhile, Alan couldn't shake off his worries and was unable to rest in his tent. Unbeknownst to him, a figure in a robe was watching from atop a cliff. The mysterious man then summoned an army of monsters in the form of bones, revealing that the goblins that were rumored to have disappeared had actually been buried all along. Feeling the presence of the monsters and their undead army, Alan quickly grabbed his sword and emerged from his tent. To his surprise, he was faced with a giant two-headed werewolf ready to attack him. Fortunately, he was able to dodge the attack. Upon seeing the undead army, Alan finally realized what had happened to the missing goblins. He fought fiercely against the giant wolf, slicing at it until it let out a loud roar that woke up the soldiers, orcs, and Sir Killian. Sir Killian, who emerged from his tent, was shocked to see Alan facing such a massive monster. But with quick thinking, Alan was able to plunge his sword into one of the wolf's eyes and slash its neck, killing it. As he emerged victorious, Sir Killian and Carta approached him, equally shocked by the massive army of undead goblins. Alan believed that the Lich, a powerful necromancer, was responsible for the goblins' deaths, as he was the only creature who used corpses as his servants. He was determined that the Lich wanted to prevent them from making a pact with Soldrake. As the battle raged on, Alan pushed forward, searching for the Lich who controlled the undead army. He knew that defeating the Lich was key to ending the battle and achieving his goal of conquering the mausoleum. Sir Killian and the orcs fought fiercely by his side, determined to protect Alan and help him fulfill his destiny. The goblins, led by the Lich, fought with all their might, but Alan and his troops were too powerful. Sir Killian proved to be a formidable warrior, beheading one of the giant wolf beasts with ease. Alan himself took on 2 enormous snake monsters, using their own attacks against them and ultimately defeating them. With the Lich's army defeated and the Lich himself nowhere to be found, Alan knew that he had to continue his search for the truth about his family's past. He was determined to restore the glory of the Vault family and the Pendragon family, and he would stop at nothing to achieve that goal. After successfully defeating the snake monster, Alan surveyed his surroundings. But as he did, he suddenly sensed a menacing presence behind him. It was the Lich, a monster who had already killed one of his soldiers with its giant scythe. Alan remembered the feeling from when he was at the hunter's camp, and knew that the Lich was invisible to humans. But if its scythe touched a human, they would die instantly. Acting on instinct, Alan blocked the Lich's attack with his sword. He realized that his blade had pushed the monster away. As he reflected on this, Sir Killian called out to him, drawing his attention to the fact that their troops were suddenly dropping dead one by one. Alan could feel the Lich's presence near Sir Killian. Without hesitation, Alan leapt into action, pulling Sir Killian to safety and saving him from the Lich's deadly scythe. Sir Killian was confused, as only Alan could sense the Lich's presence. Trapped and outnumbered, Alan knew he had to quickly defeat the Lich, or his entire army would be wiped out. As he struggled to come up with a plan, Kratul stepped forward, wielding his staff and casting a powerful spell. A green magic aura enveloped the battlefield, and Kratul explained that he had the power of the god of the earth and could summon tree roots to attack the undead goblin troops. By striking the ground with his staff, Kratul was able to defeat the goblin army. Though victorious, Alan couldn't help but question Kratul, wondering why he hadn't used this spell earlier. Kratul explained that it took a significant amount of time and energy to prepare such a powerful magic. With a snap of his fingers, Kratul made the tree roots glow, providing Alan with the light he needed to locate the Lich. The monster was standing on top of a high cliff, and Alan finally had the opportunity to defeat it. After a long and arduous search, Alan finally discovered the location of the Lich. Without hesitation, he handed over command of the rest of his army to Kratul and the other orcs. As he engaged in battle with the powerful undead sorcerer, Karda, who had heard Alan's cries for help, rushed to his aid, using his hand as a makeshift stepping stone for Alan to jump over the cliff and launch a direct attack on the Lich. However, the Lich was able to block Alan's strike with his mace. In the heat of the moment, Alan came to the realization that the Lich had been targeting him all along. He also became aware that the Wraith, another powerful undead creature, was on its way to their location. With the orcs and Sir Killian more than capable of handling the remaining undead goblins, Alan knew that he could trust them to defend against the attack. He focused all his attention on defeating the Lich, determined to bring an end to the creature's reign of terror. As soon as Alan laid eyes on the Lich, he charged forward with his sword drawn, but the Lich was quick to counter with a spell that summoned skull fists to block Alan's path. Despite the obstacle, Alan expertly slashed through each one, determined to reach his foe. However, as he closed in on the Lich, he could sense the presence of the Wraith getting closer and closer. Acting on instinct, Alan dodged just in time to avoid the deadly scythe of the Wraith. In that moment, Alan knew he had to think fast if he wanted to defeat both the Lich and the Wraith. The Lich unleashed a powerful fire spell that further hindered Alan's movements, but he refused to let it stop him. The Wraith then joined the fray, attacking Alan with its scythe. Just as it seemed as though Alan was about to be overwhelmed by the deadly assault, his sword suddenly emitted a blinding blue light and burst into blue flames that were able to withstand the Wraith's attacks. With renewed strength and determination, Alan fought on, determined to emerge victorious. As Alan battled the Lich and the Wraith, he suddenly heard a voice speaking to him. It took a moment for him to realize that the voice belonged to Soldrake, a powerful dragon who had been watching over him. With Soldrake's encouragement, Alan was imbued with new strength and power, including the ability to see the existence of the Wraiths, which he discovered to be 2 in number. With a swift strike, Alan was able to defeat both Wraiths and make them disappear. With the Wraiths eliminated, Alan turned his attention to the Lich, who was perched atop a cliff, defenseless against Alan's powerful sword. With one swift thrust, Alan plunged his sword through the Lich's head, killing it and putting an end to the undead goblin troops. After the battle was over, Alan took the time to gather his fallen soldiers and give them a proper burial. The atmosphere was heavy with emotion, and Sir Killian was particularly devastated by the loss of many of his troops. Alan knew that the victory had come at a great cost, but he was proud of the bravery and sacrifice of his comrades. As Alan sat cleaning his sword, he was suddenly overwhelmed by memories of his past life. He remembered being falsely accused of masterminding an uprising and the subsequent death of his family. The memories shifted to a specific moment, when Alan's father, Gordon Pendragon, had just passed away. As he awoke from the dream, Alan felt a sharp pain in his head. Stepping outside his tent to get some fresh air, Alan came across Kratul, who was on guard duty. The two men chatted and Alan expressed his gratitude for his sword, which had played a key role in his victory against the Lich and Wraith. He believed that the sword held Soldrake's power, which is why he had gained the dragon's magic eye ability, allowing him to see things he couldn't before. However, Alan was confused as to why Soldrake had given him the power, since he knew that Alan was not the real Alan. As he tried to make sense of it all, Alan's head began to hurt again. Kratul noticed Alan's distress and became worried. Alan, however, looked at Kratul with an angry expression, causing confusion. He apologized and tried to avoid any further conversation. As the sun rose, Alan and his party prepared to continue their journey and enter a cave that would lead them to the mausoleum. The condition of the cave gave them a sense of unease, but Alan made the decision to press on. He pulled out his sword and rallied his troops, determined to see their mission through. This is the end of the second part. The moral lesson learned from this manhwa is being prepared and thinking strategically can help turn the tide in difficult situations. Teamwork and utilizing the strengths of diverse individuals can lead to success. The third part of White Dragon Duke Pendragon begins by showing Alan and his team venture deeper into the cave. Karda took the lead with Kratul following closely behind. Suddenly, Kratul came to an abrupt halt, sensing something strange in the air. It was the presence of spirits. After closer inspection, they discovered that a water spirit was guarding the cave. Kratul warned the others to be cautious, as the protection of the earth god they brought with them would not be effective in this cave. As they continued, they came upon a waterfall, behind which they spotted a ladder and a shadowy figure that resembled a shield. As they approached the waterfall, two water spirits emerged, taking the form of a giant turtle. Alan's troops were taken aback, but Kratul explained that the turtle was simply a form of the water spirit trying to protect its treasure. Alan believed that the giant turtle would do anything to keep intruders at bay and guard its treasure. He stepped forward, determined to face the water spirit alone, but his actions only caused his troops to panic even more. With a fierce determination, Alan raised his sword once more and pointed it towards the water spirit. To his amazement, the sword emitted a bright blue light, and the water spirit was instantly destroyed. The treasure that the spirit had been guarding was revealed to be a shield bearing the Pendragon family crest. Sir Killian promptly took possession of the shield and, as if by magic, all the wounds sustained by Alan's troops were suddenly healed. The orcs, who had been watching in awe, marveled at Alan's victory and asked if it was his sword that had helped him throughout their journey. Alan was equally puzzled, but had a feeling that he needed to keep using the sword. After exploring the cave, Alan and his troops finally arrived at the mausoleum. As they were about to enter the mausoleum, Alan's sword once again emitted its light, as if giving him a signal. To their surprise, the doors of the mausoleum opened on their own, and a knight riding a horse emerged from the smoke. Alan quickly rallied his troops, preparing them for battle against the mysterious knight. As they braced themselves for battle, they were shocked to discover that the silhouette was none other than the predecessor of the Pendragon family, Gordon Pendragon. Gordon Pendragon raised his sword and cast a brilliant light into the sky, blinding everyone with its radiance. This was when the guardian deity, Soldrake, descended from the heavens. The warriors were awestruck by Soldrake's powerful aura. Soldrake appeared behind Gordon Pendragon, and from the depths of the forest came a loud voice asking who Alan and his army were. Everyone was taken aback, initially thinking it was Gordon who had spoken. But Alan recognized the voice as the one he had heard when he first met the real Alan. He was certain it was not Alan's voice, nor Gordon's voice, but Soldrake's. When Alan replied that he was Alan Pendragon, Soldrake approached him, but she knew that the person before her was not the true Alan Pendragon. Soldrake then asked once again, who the man standing before her really was. As Soldrake's pressure intensified, Alan felt an overwhelming pain in his head as if it would explode. He collapsed to the ground, and his troops panicked at the sight of him. Soldrake repeated her question, but Alan couldn't take the excruciating pain any longer, and he vomited blood. In the end, he confessed that he was Raven Vault. As he lay on the ground, On the brink of unconsciousness, Alan was shown a series of memories, beginning from the moment he woke up as Alan until his journey to the mausoleum. As Alan remembered those memories, he suddenly rose to his feet and declared that he was the true successor of the Pendragon family, Alan Pendragon. Gordon Pendragon smiled at Alan's determination, before disappearing. Soldrake let out a deafening roar, causing everyone to gasp in fear. But then Soldrake spoke, saying that her promise to both Alan Pendragon and Raven Vault had been fulfilled. Just as Soldrake finished her words, Alan collapsed again, exhausted. His friends were worried about him, but Alan reassured them that he was fine. He even revealed that he had made a contract with Soldrake. They were overjoyed and touched to hear this news, as it meant that their sacrifices had not been in vain. As they celebrated their victory, Alan suddenly became aware of something. Soldrake had mentioned that their guests had arrived. Alan was puzzled about who these guests were. Suddenly, 6 shadows of flying creatures appeared in the sky, approaching them. As they got closer, they realized that these were 6 giant dragons. The dragons landed and approached Soldrake. Amelhart, the Black Dragon, questioned Soldrake if Alan was the new contractor of the Queen. Soldrake was taken aback by the sudden arrival of the dragons, as their agreement with the Pendragon family had nothing to do with them. Arigurian, the Green Dragon, began to bully Soldrake, insisting that they had the right to ask. But Soldrake stood her ground and retorted back at the 2 dragons. One of the dragons said that it could sense the aura of both the demon god and dragon god within Alan. Soldrake, who was getting increasingly annoyed, let out a loud roar, scaring the dragons. She then ordered the dragons to leave, as she considered them uninvited guests. As Soldrake announced herself as the Dragon King, Alan was taken aback by the revelation. The dragons glanced at one another before Amelhart spoke, promising that they would return if the humans ever returned to their land. With that, the 6 dragons took flight, leaving Soldrake and Alan with his troops behind. Meanwhile, Carta and the others were just coming to and were confused about the events that had just transpired, as only Alan had been able to hear the conversation between Soldrake and the dragons. As they stood there, Alan asked Soldrake to lower her head, and to everyone's surprise, Soldrake transformed into a human form, revealing himself to be a woman. Shocked by this revelation, Alan and the others began the journey back to the Pendragon Kingdom with Soldrake in tow. As Soldrake and Alan conversed, Carta requested that Sir Killian try to listen in on their discussion. However, Sir Killian refused and urged the orcs to listen for themselves. Kratul responded that the Ancona orc couldn't approach the guardian god of the forest. During their conversation, Alan questioned Soldrake about the 6 dragons they had encountered earlier, but Soldrake evaded the question, stating that only time could reveal the answer. Alan also asked why Soldrake had been reincarnated into his body, but again Soldrake dodged the question, saying that time would provide the answer. Alan grew increasingly frustrated with Soldrake's evasiveness. Suddenly, a monstrous creature appeared and attacked Alan and his companions. Just as Alan prepared to defend himself, Soldrake moved with lightning speed and effortlessly defeated the monster. The group was astounded by Soldrake's swift movements. Soldrake then proceeded to devour the monster's remains, causing Alan's troops to feel uneasy. The group realized that although Soldrake had taken on the form of a beautiful woman, she was still a dragon at heart. As Alan and his companions set up camp, he provided them with game animals to serve as their lunch. This time, Alan offered Soldrake cooked meat and the two began to converse. Soldrake revealed that Alan could call her Soul and Alan began to inquire about the dragon god and demon god, but Soul remained evasive and insisted that only time would provide the answers. Alan's irritation with Soul's reluctance to share information continued to grow. After a long and arduous journey, Alan and his companions finally returned to the Pendragon Kingdom. The people of the kingdom were overjoyed to see Alan and his entourage return safely, and they were even more surprised to see Soldrake, now in the form of a winged woman, among them. The residents welcomed them with open arms, and everyone was excited to hear of their adventures. However, when the townsfolk saw Alan arrive with a winged woman and a group of orcs in tow, they were taken aback, except for Alan's mother who had a sense of familiarity with the woman in front of her. With a victorious shout, Alan announced that the Pendragon Kingdom had triumphed and the white dragon, Soul, would once again live among them. Soul transformed back into a white dragon and let out a mighty roar. The kingdom celebrated Alan's success by throwing a grand feast and inviting nobles from neighboring countries and merchants to join in the celebration. However, Lindsay noticed that Alan was not in attendance at the party. In fact, he was with Soul, who was showing little interest in interacting with Alan. Soul questioned why Alan always sought to engage with her, and why he was with her instead of enjoying the party. Alan replied that he had no interest in greeting guests, and found it bothersome. Soul expressed that he had been with the Pendragon family for a long time and had never heard of a dragon being expected to attend a party. Alan's persistent questioning grew tiresome for Soul, and she decided to fly away. As Alan watched Soul fly away and leave him alone, he was taken aback when a group of girls approached him, vying for his attention. Alan found their advances uncomfortable, and the situation was made worse when the girls began to argue with each other, causing Alan to feel even more agitated. Eventually, he decided to leave the girls and their squabble behind. As he walked away, he came across the orcs who were drinking with Sir Killian. It was clear that Sir Killian had had too much to drink. Carta, noticing Alan, challenged him to a drinking contest, and Alan accepted. They spent the rest of the night drinking together. The scene then shifts to Alan, who is visibly drunk and feeling dizzy. Lindsay helps him back to his room, expressing her happiness that he was able to have some fun after the death of his father. Alan simply smiled in response. As Alan made his way to his room, he was taken aback to find all the girls who had been vying for his attention already inside. Just as he was about to confront them, his mother appeared and asked him if he had any interest in any of the girls. She explained that now that Alan had succeeded in making a pact with Soul Drake and restoring the kingdom's glory, it was his duty as a Pendragon to produce an heir. This revelation left Alan in disbelief. Despite his initial reluctance, Alan's mother explained that it was a long-standing tradition in their family for a potential heir to be chosen swiftly. Alan had been previously betrothed to Luna, but their engagement had fallen through, leaving him with the task of selecting a new candidate. His sister, who was present, reminded Alan that he had also been previously arranged to marry a girl from the Empire, but that too had been cancelled. Despite his reservations, Alan's sister convinced him to choose one of the women present. The girls began to display their supposed superiority, with the daughters of the Emperor, a general, and a wealthy merchant all vying for Alan's attention. However, as the competition grew more fierce, Alan found himself increasingly displeased with the girls' behavior, as they fought over unclear reasons. Under pressure from his mother, Alan was forced to choose a partner from among the eligible young women present. However, to the surprise of those present, Alan chose Lindsay, a servant who had been by his side for 3 years while he was unconscious. Alan's sister and mother were panicked by his choice, as the purpose of the arranged marriage was to ensure the continuation of the Pendragon family line. But Alan explained that he knew the true intentions behind the arranged marriage, and that the girls who had come to compete for his hand were only interested in making a pact with the Pendragon family. He questioned if they would be as loyal as Lindsay had been, who had taken care of him during his time of need. The other girls, feeling ashamed, couldn't help but admit that they had nothing and were only using their family's accomplishments to gain Alan's favor. Alan also explained that he had friends he trusted and that the Pendragon family did not need an alliance. His mother, moved by his words, finally agreed to Alan's decision. With that, Alan asked Lindsay if she wants to be his empress, to which he gladly accepted Alan. Alan announced that Lindsay was now the mistress of the Pendragon family. The scene shifts to Atia testing Alan's bravery in his decision to move forward without an alliance. Alan assures Atia that he has a plan to recruit future famous names and strengthen his army with loyal subordinates. Atia is pleased with Alan's plan and confident in his ability to govern his family effectively. Suddenly, Alan mentions that 6 dragons came to him when he made a pact with Soul. Atia is surprised and asks about Soldrake's response. Alan responds with a slight hint of irritation on his face, remembering Soldrake's answer. As they continue to talk, Atia's presence begins to fade. She explains that it is time for her to go. Alan panics, but Atia assures him that she believes in him before disappearing. Alan, now alone, is left to cry and hug Atia's memory, calling her Granny. The story shifts to the wedding of Alan and Lindsay, where the two are now officially married. During the celebration, Alan finds himself alone in his room, and Soul appears to him. They talk about Alan's marriage and Alan asks Soul where she went during the party the day before. Soul tells Alan that she went to a place called Ray, located behind the castle, where there was a statue of a dragon. Soul explains that she stays there after making a pact with the Pendragon family, as it is a tradition for Soldrake to live there. Alan expresses his concern for Soul's well-being, asking if it wasn't boring for her to live in such isolation. Soul responds that everywhere is the same for her, as no one can hear her voice. She explains that the Pendragon family has always chosen not to interact with Soldrake. Even her ancestor and Gordon, the previous Pendragon, never spoke to her. As they continue to talk, Alan suddenly remembers Atia's words that he was good friends with Soldrake. Soul then reveals that Alan is the only one who has ever spoken to her, breaking the tradition. In order to build a deeper connection, Alan asks Sol to keep their conversations a secret and to be able to summon her freely. As a sign of their friendship, Sol starts calling Alan by the name Ray, and Alan expresses his liking for the name, reminding him of his younger brother. They continue to talk and laugh, enjoying each other's company. As news of Alan's pact with the dragon spread throughout the Empire, it caught the attention of wandering knights who were eager to join the Pendragon family. Meanwhile, Luna was scolded by her father for Alan's success, and two unknown figures plotted to eliminate Alan, believing he was standing in the way of their plans. The scene then shifts to Alan, who is on his way to the Belent Gate to recruit new members for the Pendragon army. At the gate, Sir Killian is training new recruits, but their expressions are downcast. When Alan arrives and asks how the new members are doing, Sir Killian explains that many people are eager to become knights, but they lack the strength to do so. He expresses his disappointment and frustration with the situation, but Alan remains determined to find the right people to strengthen his army. Sir Killian was a skilled commander, and Alan had praised him for his ability to train new recruits. Despite this, the members seemed to underestimate Sir Killian because they had heard that he had been defeated by Alan. Ancona orcs were also present to train the new members, but they seemed unhappy because they couldn't feel the intense battle. Sol was also there, along with the Griffins, whom Sol seemed to consider as her family. Suddenly, Sol called Alan and informed him that a group of knights had arrived. It turned out that the knight who had come was the same one who had received news of Alan's success in capturing the dragon. Sir Killian greeted the knights and introduced himself as the commander of the Wraith Dragon Order and a member of the Pendragon family. The two knights introduced themselves as Reed Pollock, a long-haired knight from the Evandel area, and Barrio Lutton, a bald knight. They explained that they had come to find a leader and showcase their skills. Sir Killian also asked the hooded knight for his name, but the knight replied that he didn't have one. Upon hearing that the hooded knight didn't have a name, Sir Killian was taken aback. However, the two knights reassured him that they had only just met on the street, and, because they shared the same goal, they had decided to travel together. Sir Killian then asked if they had come to become Pendragon knights, to which they confirmed. The two knights began to boast about their skills in front of Sir Killian, causing him to become a little irritated. Alan arrived and instructed Sir Killian to test the abilities of the knights. Excited by the opportunity to repay the arrogance of the two knights, Sir Killian happily agreed. They began practicing sword fighting, and at first, the new recruits had doubts about Sir Killian's abilities. However, he quickly put those doubts to rest by defeating the bald knight with one move and easily defeating the long-haired knight as well. The new recruits, who had initially underestimated Sir Killian, were now in awe of his strength. Sir Killian approached Alan and asked for his opinion on the knight's abilities. Alan remarked that their abilities were not bad and that they could be put to use. When Alan asked why the hooded knight did not participate in the sparring, the knight replied that he was not interested. Sir Killian, feeling his young master being humiliated, asked for the knight's name, but the knight simply replied that he did not have one. Sir Killian, incensed by the knight's attitude, grabbed his shoulder in anger, but the knight effortlessly threw him backwards, shocking everyone present. Realizing the knight's immense strength, Alan challenged him to a one-on-one duel. Drawing his sword, he said that is the signal for the start of the duel for the cavaliers from Valvas. Sir Killian, hearing the name of the cavaliers, was surprised. The other members, who were unfamiliar with the term, asked Sir Killian to explain. Sir Killian explained that a cavalier is a knight with a strength equivalent to 1,000 soldiers, hailing from the war-torn region of Valvas. They were known to be the sharpest swords for their masters and feared nothing, including death. Sir Killian was meeting a cavalier for the first time and was confused as to how Alan had recognized one so quickly. As Alan looked at the man before him, dressed in clothing and armed with weapons reminiscent of the knights he had fought against long ago at Valvas, he knew that he was dealing with a true cavalier. Such a man would never bow his head to anyone, not even a king. Alan had a desire to have the man serve him, but the man immediately refused, stating that he no longer wanted to serve anyone. The man explained that he had come to this place simply by following the direction of the stars, and had only stayed to provide water to the people of Valvas, who lived near the sea and placed great importance on astrology and drinking. Alan then declared that the horoscope was correct if it was directed at him, Alan Pendragon. At this, the cavalier drew his sword and was ready to accept Alan's challenge. The other two knights present noticed that Alan had a good posture, and that his sword was similar to their own. Alan launched a swift attack towards the man, surprising everyone, but the cavalier was able to defend himself. The fight continued, with the cavalier ultimately losing, and Alan emerged victorious. The man then pressed Alan's sword down and attacked with his other sword. Alan quickly dodged and delivered a slash that managed to scratch the man's body. But Alan also sustained a cut on his face. Those watching the fight were caught off guard, as the action had happened too quickly for them to fully process. One of the soldiers, seeing the confusion on Sir Killian's face, asked him what had happened. Sir Killian could only shrug in bewilderment, as the man's dual sword technique was not something he had seen before. Alan praised and said if it doesn't hit, it's usually useful for dual sword users. Alan praised and said if it doesn't hit, it's usually useful for dual sword users. The man, in turn, asked Alan who he really is and if he is really a son from a noble family. Alan replied that he had killed many monsters and humans to survive. Hearing Alan's words, the man began to take the fight more seriously and prepared to use his hands. The Ancona orcs, who were sleeping, woke up to the sound of Alan's fight with the man and decided to go watch. They were shocked to see the intense battle. Alan and the man exchanged swords. At first, Alan aimed for the man's feet, but the man seemed to be well trained, and was able to anticipate and parry Alan's attack. The man then launched an attack towards Alan, but Alan was able to dodge by twisting his body forward. When Alan was in the air, he tried to slash the man's head, but it was avoided. The man then lunged forward and was about to stab Alan, but it turned out to be a trick. The man quickly attacked from the other side. Alan, however, was able to read the attack and managed to grab the man's hand. Alan thought the man was going to kick him in the groin, but instead, the man did a leg-sweeping kick, causing Alan to lose his balance. But Alan was quick to respond and attack the man's leg, knocking him down. They clashed swords with each other, as if they were enjoying the fight. The crowd watched in awe as Alan and the man engaged in a fierce battle. The soldiers wondered if they could even stand a chance against either of the skilled fighters. Sir Killian, too, looked on with a mix of awe and fear. The fight was intense, with both Alan and the man displaying impressive swordplay and quick thinking. Just as it seemed the man had the upper hand, Alan cleverly used sand to blind his opponent. The man stumbled, giving Alan the opportunity to strike. With a fluid sword move, Alan's sword found its way to the man's neck. The crowd, including Sir Killian and the other warriors, was shocked by Alan's sudden victory. The man, now defeated, knelt before Alan and swore allegiance to him. He revealed his name as Elkin Islal, and Alan recognized it as a name that would become well known in the future as a member of the Oranges Duchy and a hero of many battles. Alan, however, saw Elkin as more than a mere follower. He saw him as a partner, and declared that the only difference between them was their roles. Alan wanted Elkin to be his equal, and together they would make a powerful team. Elkin, upon hearing Alan's response, couldn't help but smile and decided to follow Alan. The other two knights also expressed their desire to join Alan, much to their surprise. Suddenly, a figure descended to their level, revealing herself to be Sol and her companion, Griffin. The knights were taken aback by the sight of Sol, feeling a tremendous pressure emanating from her. Sir Killian informed them that Sol was the infamous Wraith Dragon. The revelation left the knights in shock. Alan then introduced Sol to Elkin, who approached her with a calm demeanor. The other knights were amazed by Elkin's composure in the presence of the powerful dragon. Alan became intrigued by Elkin and decided to seek out more notable individuals in the future, including a wealthy businessman from the City of Freedom, Idun Dorian, a man who built a tower in South Valvas and was renowned for creating magic equipment, Jean Oberlin, and a young general, Ivan Jeter, who had already seized control of the Knights of the North with his genius tactics. Feeling grateful for the opportunity to recruit individuals who could become powerful leaders in the world, Alan was abruptly interrupted by a message from their leader. The message informed him that a group of soldiers had entered the Ancona forest, led by someone wearing an ogre helmet. Alan, upon hearing this news, was shocked as he recognized the leader as someone he knew. The Ancona orcs were puzzled as to how a human could defeat an ogre. Alan's anger erupted as he knew there was only one person who matched that description, Baltai. His anger was palpable as he exuded a powerful aura, demanding to know the location of the group. He was told that the message came from the orc village. As Alan received the unsettling news, Baltai was deep in the Ancona forest, systematically eliminating orcs. His ultimate goal was to rally the centaur tribe to his cause. He used a powerful, enchanted mirror to hypnotize and control the centaurs, turning them into his own personal army. With this new force at his disposal, Baltai set his sights on confronting and defeating Alan. This is the end of the third part. The fourth part of White Dragon Duke Pendragon continues as Alan and his companions reach the village of the Ancona orcs. They are greeted by the village children, but Alan's anger causes one of the children to be frightened. Sir Killian and Carta also noticed the dragon-shaped aura behind Alan and Elkin's aura. The leader of the Ancona Orcs welcomes them and they worship Sol. Sol then flies away, leaving Alan and his group to talk with the leader. They discuss the escape of some soldiers from the chief's magical tutelage and the fact that warriors sent to follow them have not returned. The chief believes they have encountered the Centaur tribe. Alan explains that the relationship between the centaurs, pendragons, and orcs is complicated. The centaurs used to live in the forests of Ancona, but the pendragons allowed the Ancona orcs to live around the Ancona forest when they moved there. As Alan and his group continue their conversation with the leader of the Ancona orcs, they learn that the centaurs have a hostile relationship with the pendragons and the orcs, as the centaurs hate humans. However, the orcs serve as a defense for the pendragons. Suddenly, Sir Killian comes in to announce that the centaur tribe is attacking the village. Everyone is surprised by this sudden attack. During the attack, Alan catches an arrow aimed at him and discovers that the crest of the Empire is on it. He realizes that the centaurs have conspired with the Empire and the Baltai. Alan's anger boils over, and he releases a strong killing aura, shouting for all the centaurs to be killed, even if it means their extinction. He charges towards the centaurs, blocking their attacks with his sword. He manages to strike one of them, but he is confused as to why the centaurs don't feel pain when they are slashed. As the centaurs were rallying their troops, they all shouted in unison to protect the forest. Alan was confused by their words, but the Ancona orcs were also aware of the strange behavior of the centaurs. Even though they had been defeated, they remained fearless as they felt no pain. The orcs explained that they were under the influence of magic, being controlled by an unknown force. Sir Killian attempted to attack one of the centaurs from behind, but was quickly knocked down by a powerful kick from the centaur. Alan, feeling overwhelmed, asked Sol for help, but Sol refused, considering the centaurs and Ancona orcs as her own children and unable to interfere. One of the centaurs tried to attack the Ancona orcs, but Alan managed to save a child. As he watched the destruction of the orcs' village, Alan devised a plan and led the centaurs away from the village. He taunted and humiliated them, even stepping on the corpse of one of the centaurs. The enraged centaurs followed Alan, leaving the village behind. Sol, who had been watching, summoned one of her griffins to land in front of Elkin, signaling him to take action. Alan, now cornered and with no escape, stood his ground and lunged at the centaurs, ready for the final confrontation. As the centaurs closed in on Alan, arrows suddenly appeared from behind and struck the three leading centaurs. Alan turned to see Elkin, riding on a griffin and wielding a crossbow, had come to his aid. The centaurs tried to shoot at the griffin, but it elegantly dodged every shot. Elkin, with precision, shot the centaurs. Alan, now realizing the formidable nature of the griffin and Elkin's skill as a rider, remembered Elkin's nickname from their past, the Stormbringer. The cornered centaurs retreated into the forest to escape the griffin. As they were leaving, Alan shot one of the centaur's legs, causing it to fall. He approached the centaur and discovered it was the leader of the tribe. The centaur, now powerless, could only grit its teeth. Alan raised the shield he had acquired after defeating the centaur, and proceeded to heal the centaur's wounds and dispel the mind control magic. Some may have wondered why Alan would heal the wound, but Alan stated that he couldn't kill him right away, as he had questions. He asked the centaur about the people who had given them weapons, specifically inquiring about a man named Baltai. The centaur was surprised that Alan knew the name, but Alan did not reveal how he knew. The centaur revealed that Baltai and his gang had instigated them to take over the forest of Ancona with their own hands, and that they had probably been bewitched by Baltai with the mirror he brought. The mirror contained a mysterious man, and the moment he spoke to them, they lost their senses and were consumed by rage. As Alan and Elkin stood among the wounded centaurs, they struggled to recall the events that had led them to this point. It was only when the centaur leader spoke that the memories came flooding back. Alan, moved by compassion, turned to heal the injured centaurs. Elkin watched in confusion as Alan worked, and eventually approached him to ask why he was helping their supposed enemies. Alan explained that the centaurs were not the true adversaries and that their predecessors had complicated the situation. The centaur leader, touched by Alan's kindness, pledged his loyalty to Alan and offered his full support. The other centaurs, following their leader's lead, also pledged their allegiance to Alan. Alan welcomed them, and asked them to serve as the protectors of the Ancona forest. The centaurs and Alan sealed their newfound friendship with a handshake. With the conflict resolved, the group celebrated with a toast. The children of the Ancona orcs, who had previously been afraid of Elkin, warmed to him and the two groups began to build a friendship. Alan and the leader of the Ancona orcs discussed the existence of mind-controlling mirrors, a revelation that took them both by surprise. The magic of the mirrors was something they had never expected to encounter. The scene shifts to Alan standing high above the residence of the Ankena orcs. Suddenly, Sol appears beside him, curious about what he was doing there. Alan, recognizing Sol, inquires if she was the one who gave Griffin to Elkin. Sol confirms that she had, and that she had sensed Griffin's aura in Elkin. In turn, Alan reveals that he too had sensed that Elkin was a Griffin rider. Sol then mentions that Alan gives off a dragon aura. This revelation confuses Alan, and Sol explains that those who have made a pact with dragons can harness the power of Dragonon within themselves, but it depends on the individual's ability to control it. Alan reassures Sol that he will not let his anger consume him. As Alan reflects on this new information, he realizes that something still doesn't add up. In his previous life, he should have joined the Giants. He remembers the Giants were engaged in a brutal battle against the deadly King Troll, where many members were killed, including Baltai. But why is Baltai even here? And where is Raven Vault? Confused and with more questions than answers, Alan decides to go back to where his family was slaughtered, in hopes of finding some clarity. The scene shifts to where Luna and her father are bowing before Prince Ian and Princess Ingrid. It's clear that they are scared of the two imperial siblings. As it turns out, Prince Ian and Princess Ingrid are the son and daughter of the Empire. Suddenly, Prince Ian kicks the table, startling Luna and her father. Princess Ingrid attempts to calm her brother. Prince Ian explains that he has come to visit Luna and her father because their territories border the Pendragon family's lands. He is curious about Alan, a prince he sees as weak and helpless, who has managed to make a pact with a white dragon. He asks Luna if they know anything about Alan, causing Luna's father to panic as she has already met Alan before. Luna reveals that Alan has changed, becoming cold, calm, and strong. Prince Ian then approaches Luna and asks if Alan is much better than him. Luna, caught off guard by the question, is left speechless. Prince Ian laughs, exuding an aura of power. Those who sense the prince's aura recognize it as that of a conqueror. Excited to meet Alan, Prince Ian orders Luna to come with him. Luna, unable to refuse the command of the arrogant second prince, agrees to accompany him. Meanwhile, at Alan's territory, he receives news that the second prince and princess of the Empire are coming to the area. Alan is curious as to why they have come and asks his servants for more information. He is surprised to learn that Princess Ingrid is his former fiancée. Alan is taken aback as he had no memory of having a fiancée before Luna. He then recalls his sister's words from a few days ago and becomes dizzy with confusion. The story then shifts to describing the state of Alan's army, 1 month after an incident with the centaurs. Many new knights have joined Alan's army, and Elkin has begun building a Griffin army to strengthen Alan's forces. Once Alan had succeeded in controlling the aura of the white dragon, making it visible to the naked eye. He had planned to take some time off and visit his hometown of Sisek during the hot season. However, his plans were abruptly disrupted by the arrival of Prince Ian and Princess Ingrid. Feeling uneasy about the prince, Alan asked his butler to be cautious around him. He was informed that Prince Ian had been chosen as the heir to the throne, leaving Alan to question how the second prince could be in line for the position. His head maid explained that it was due to the first prince's deteriorating condition. As Alan reflected on this information, a memory surfaced in his mind of a future where the rightful king was not Prince Ian, but someone named Goofly. He inquired if the first prince's name was Goofly, but his butler confirmed that the first prince's name was Zion of Aragon, and that he had never heard of Goofly. Confused and unsure of the truth, Alan felt that the future had somehow shifted and became intertwined. Determined to uncover the truth, he began to gather strength in his fingers and declared that he had found a reason to meet Prince Ian. Prince Ian and Princess Ingrid arrived at the gates of the Pendragon residence, where Prince Ian immediately released his powerful aura, causing the servants and warriors of Pendragon to feel pressured. However, to his surprise, Alan remained unaffected by his aura. Casually, Alan approached Prince Ian, and they stood face to face. They exchanged a few words, but the tension between them was palpable. Suddenly, Alan released his own dragon aura, causing Prince Ian to be even more surprised. However, before anything could happen, Princess Ingrid intervened and asked Prince Ian not to cause any trouble. Alan realized that Prince Ian was very protective of his younger sister, Princess Ingrid. He was confused to see Luna, whom he knew, with the entourage, and asked her why she was there. Princess Ingrid greeted Alan warmly, and they had a short conversation. She complimented Alan, saying that he was strong and captivating, just as Luna had described him. Alan was surprised to hear these words from Princess Ingrid, and she took his hand and invited him to join them. Prince Ian, however, looked at Alan with suspicion. Suddenly, Alan's mother and sister, Princess Irene, came calling for him. Prince Ian was taken aback by the beauty of Princess Irene, and he began to tease her with sweet words, but she paid him no attention and instead walked towards Alan, complimenting him. Prince Ian was furious, and his anger caused Alan's sister, Mia, to become terrified and flee to Elkin for protection. When Prince Ian saw Elkin, he demanded to know who he was, but Elkin refused to give him his name. This only served to further enrage Prince Ian, who couldn't believe a mere knight would dare to call him by name. Irene stepped in to explain that Elkin was indeed a knight and begged for Prince Ian's forgiveness. The prince then challenged Elkin to a duel to determine who was the better man, but Elkin nonchalantly stated that Prince Ian wouldn't be able to defeat him. This only made Prince Ian even more irritated, but Princess Ingrid intervened and warned Prince Ian that if he continued to make a scene, she would not speak to him for a year. Feeling defeated, Prince Ian asked to speak privately with Alan and Alan agreed. They had a brief conversation, but things took a turn when Prince Ian suddenly lunged at Alan. Alan quickly reacted by throwing a drink in Prince Ian's face and hitting him hard, causing Prince Ian's nose to bleed. However, Prince Ian managed to catch Alan's hand and slammed him against the wall, tearing his shirt. As the fight continued, Alan managed to successfully subdue Prince Ian with a lock on his feet. However, he suddenly let go of the hold, causing Prince Ian to question his actions. Alan explained that he released Prince Ian because he didn't believe he was fighting seriously. Alan also pointed out that if Prince Ian had been serious, he would have taken the opportunity to grab the nearby knife and stab Alan while he was locked down. Alan then let out his aura again, and questioned Prince Ian's purpose for being there. Prince Ian only laughed in response, leaving Alan confused. Prince Ian then explained that he had come to recruit Alan to join forces with him in the struggle for the royal heir's throne. Many nobles were supporting different members of the royal family behind the scenes, and Prince Ian wanted Alan by his side. He promised to give Alan everything he wanted if he joined him. Hearing this, Alan reflected on Prince Ian's reputation as a despicable prince, but began to sense that this may be his true nature. He made a surprising statement, saying that Prince Ian did not actually want to be king, and that his abominable prince persona was just an act. Despite Prince Ian's explanation, Alan remained skeptical and refused his invitation, stating that he could not trust someone who had a hidden agenda. Prince Ian was taken aback, as Alan was only the second person to see through his facade, the first being his sister Princess Ingrid. He then revealed that his true intention was to make his brother Shaun the heir to the throne, as he was currently being treated for an illness. However, Prince Ian's anger flared when Alan questioned the nature of Shaun's illness. He revealed that Shaun had almost died during a rebellion 3 years ago in Sisek. Alan was shocked, as he could relate to the situation, having gone through something similar himself. Despite this, Alan asked Prince Ian to reveal the truth about the rebellion to the public. The scene then shifted to Luna and Princess Ingrid, who were surprised to learn that Alan was married to Lindsay. The scene then shifts to Alan and Prince Ian, where Prince Ian has just finished explaining everything he knows about the rebellion. Alan, now understanding the gravity of the situation, remembers that he never received a letter from the authorities in Sisek. He senses that there is a deeper purpose behind it. Prince Ian also admits that it is difficult for them to find the mastermind behind the rebellion, as there are many princes and nobles who support them, making it impossible for him to pinpoint the culprit. As the conversation progresses, Alan brings up the name Gufli, to which Prince Ian reveals that Gufli is just the son of a concubine and doesn't possess any real power. However, when Alan asks about the background of Gufli's mother, Prince Ian reveals that she is Baroness Ellen, from the port city of Sisek. This revelation surprises both Alan and Prince Ian as they wonder how Gufli could be behind the plot to kill his own brother, and not gain anything from it. But Alan, remembering the words of his mentor Baltai, that everything is connected, lets out an immense aura of power, shocking Prince Ian. He realizes that Alan still has more power to unleash and that the White Dragon, Sol, is still with him. As Alan and Prince Ian continued their conversation, Sol approached them in her human form. She commented on the dragon's aura she sensed from Alan and asked if she was alright. Prince Ian was in awe of Sol's beauty and couldn't believe that a dragon was standing before him. Seeing Alan's familiarity with Sol, Prince Ian began to trust Alan's intuition. Alan then invited Prince Ian to his summer villa, near Silvertian Beach on the outskirts of Sisek. The plan was to lure out their enemies and confront them at the villa. Meanwhile, on a ship, 2 men were discussing Alan and Prince Ian. One of the men mentioned that Governor Count Segunda and the Pendragons were like cats and dogs, but his friend quickly silenced him, warning him not to speak carelessly. The topic of conversation then shifted to the arrival of a ship belonging to Arangis, the king of the seas. The news of Oranges being guarded by the powerful sea dragon, Viscula, had left one man in a state of fear. He feared that their military strength would not be able to match that of the dragons. However, President Ron reassured them that they were looking forward to the arrival of the nobles and hoped that nothing would come of their fears. Meanwhile, Alan was surrounded by women in swimwear, but he was not pleased with the situation. Suddenly, Prince Ian appeared, wearing nothing but a pair of panties. He asked the women to leave Alan and come to him. It turned out that Prince Ian was the one who had invited the women to the villa. The women were surprised by Prince Ian's bold fashion choice and felt a bit awkward. But Irene, laughing, complimented Prince Ian on his cute underwear. This caught Prince Ian off guard, as he had expected the women to be awed by his muscular body. Feeling overshadowed, Alan walked towards the sea and took off his shirt, revealing his own impressive muscles. The girl couldn't help but admire Alan's physique, but Prince Ian was filled with envy and anger. He couldn't understand why the girl would prefer Alan's body over his, even though he believed his own to be more burly. As Alan went fishing, Sol caught a massive fish, which turned out to be a whale. The scene then shifts to Sir Killian, who is with Carta and Elkin, taking a stroll in the port. Carta was excited to follow Alan, as he hoped to find many knights to fight with. Sir Killian finally understood why Carta had been so insistent on joining them. Suddenly, the group comes to a stop as they see a group of Ratuan orcs passing by with some griffins. Sir Killian is taken aback as the Ratuan tribe is known to be the most brutal of all orc tribes, known for their piracy. The Ratuan orcs took notice of Sir Killian and his companions and underestimated Carta, thinking him to be a weak and non-combative companion to the humans. This made Carta furious and he wanted to attack the orcs, but Sir Killian stopped him, reminding him that as a member of the Pendragon family, he must act with more restraint. The Ratuan orcs laughed mockingly at Carta, but Sir Killian managed to calm him down. Even Elkin, who had started to raise his sword, was pacified by Sir Killian. However, Sir Killian was feeling overwhelmed as he had to keep an eye on two potentially dangerous individuals. The scene changes to the office of Governor Count Segunda, where he is discussing Alan's arrival with a man named Vincent. President Ron had introduced Vincent as the one who would handle the Alan problem and control the pirate lord of the city, Luz. They plan to leave the issue in Vincent's capable hands and they have decided to use the Dark King to support their plan. As Governor Count Segunda and Vincent devise their plans, the scene shifts to Alan's residence. He sits outside, nursing a drink and staring up at the night sky. Suddenly, Prince Ian approaches him, and Alan can sense that something is troubling him. Prince Ian confirms this, expressing his frustration that Alan seems to be the center of attention among the women they had invited. Alan explains that he is married and thus not interested in such matters, but Prince Ian remains skeptical, believing that Alan and Sol have something going on between them. This revelation catches Alan off guard, but he quickly refocuses their conversation on more pressing matters. He reveals that Governor Count Segunda and Jeffrey's mother are siblings and speculates that they may be the masterminds behind recent events. Alan warns that they are likely to make a move soon and mentions that they may use Prince Ian as bait to lure out their enemies. Prince Ian is taken aback by Alan's astute deductions, despite having minimal information to work with. The two continue to discuss strategy, determined to stay one step ahead of their adversaries. In a dimly lit bar named Archipelago Orca, a group of pirate orcs had gathered. Among them was Vincent, who was deep in conversation with a man of large stature, who was accompanied by an orc. The man asked Vincent what the governor wanted from him. Vincent replied that the governor wanted the man to eliminate Alan and Prince Ian. The man was taken aback by this request, but Vincent explained that the governor had a problem with anyone stalking around, especially those related to the kingdom. The man admired Vincent's bravery for remaining calm in such a hostile environment, and in front of the Ratuan orcs as well. Vincent then gave the man more details, saying that Alan and Prince Ian would be invited to the governor's house in 3 more days. The man accepted the job, but before he could leave, Vincent asked him a sensitive question. He asked if the man was human, and the man was taken aback. He stood up, exuding an aura of power that made Vincent nervous, and it was hard for him to breathe. The man's intensity overwhelmed Vincent, causing him to fall to the ground. But despite this, Vincent managed to stand back up. Suddenly, the man was standing behind Vincent, and he was impressed by Vincent's resilience. The man, exuding an aura of strength, threatened to kill and eat everyone in the bar. Vincent realized that this man was not human. It turns out that the man was Tolio Oranges, the second son of one of the 5 dukes in the kingdom of Oranges and known as the King in the Shadows of Luz. The scene then shifts to Alan's residence, where Sir Killian arrives and informs Alan that they have accepted the invitation from Governor Count Segunda. Alan realizes that this is his chance, and Prince Ian will follow suit. However, when Alan's mother hears the name Governor Count Segunda, she becomes worried. It seems that she has some sort of history with the governor. Seeing his mother's concern, Alan asks her to stay at the villa and rest. His mother thanks him, and Alan also asks Sol to look after her. The scene then moves to Governor Count Segunda's residence, where he is hosting a grand party. Alan and Prince Ian arrive with their attractive entourage, drawing the attention of all the guests. They begin to mingle and talk with the other guests, but suddenly Carta and Alkin approach them, with Carta visibly angry. Carta is upset because Alan had promised them a tense battle, but according to Carta, the place is just filled with weak, small pigs. Carta also expresses his desire to fight the Ratuan orcs. Vincent then approaches and greets Alan's group, introducing himself to Alan. Alan notices that Vincent exudes an aura of strength and toughness, similar to that of a skilled knight. Alan quickly diverts his gaze, not wanting Vincent to suspect anything. Vincent leads Alan's group inside, where they find Governor Count Segunda waiting to greet them. The governor greets Alan and Prince Ian, but Alan notices something off about the governor's attitude. Despite this, Alan remains silent. Governor Count Segunda approached Alan and inquired about the whereabouts of Alan's mother, the Duchess. Alan informed him that she was not well and that he had left her in the care of his younger brother at the villa. The governor then suggested that he pay her a visit, but Alan firmly rejected the proposal. The governor quickly changed the subject and encouraged them to enjoy the party. As the night went on, Alan confided in Prince Ian about his past interactions with Governor Count Segunda, revealing that the governor had previously proposed to his mother, but was rejected. Despite this, he had been persistently pursuing her for the past 20 years. Alan also asked about Vincent, to which Prince Ian explained that Vincent was the governor's right-hand man and had only recently arrived in Luz Town. He also mentioned that Vincent often carried out dirty work for the governor. Alan, now concerned, resolved to solve the problem at hand. Prince Ian, however, urged him not to take it too seriously and to enjoy the party. Meanwhile, Tolio decided to take matters into his own hands. He executed all of the guards stationed at the front and made his way into the party. The scene shifts to Governor Count Segunda's residence, where he and Vincent are discussing their plans. Vincent expresses his concerns to the governor, stating that he believes Alan should be made aware of their plans and that he could potentially secure the alliance of the Knight of Valvas and Ancona orcs. The governor reassures Vincent, stating that Alan and Prince Ian will be taken care of by Tolio and that Vincent himself is capable of handling the Knight of Valvas. The governor then inquires about Vincent's meeting with Tolio. Vincent responds by describing Tolio as a formidable opponent, but Governor Count Segunda remains confident that their plan will succeed. The scene takes a dramatic turn as Tolio and the Ratuan orcs crash the party by breaking through a window. Tolio, along with his subordinates, begins to indiscriminately slaughter the guests with ruthless ferocity. Governor Count Segunda is taken aback by Tolio's excessive actions. Vincent, however, remains calm and assures the governor that this was all part of the plan and that no suspicion will be directed towards them. The women in attendance try to flee, but Tolio blocks their path. He releases an aura that causes the women to struggle to breathe. Luna recognizes the aura as the orc's fear. Just as Tolio is about to strike Luna, Alan intervenes and grabs hold of Tolio's sword. This is the end of part 4. Sword. The fifth part of White Dragon Duke Pendragon begins with Alan arriving on the scene and successfully blocking Tolio's sword. The women were relieved to see him, and Tolio praised Alan for his courage. However, it soon becomes clear that Tolio is the one who is surrounded as Prince Ian and Carta and Elkin come to join the fight. Tolio remains confident in his abilities, but as he attacks Alan, the stairs they are standing on collapses and blows them all apart. Carta and Elkin now find themselves facing off against the Ratuan orcs, who are subordinates of Tolio. They fiercely attack the orc group while Alan and Prince Ian take on Tolio. Prince Ian starts the fight but is quickly held off by Tolio. They engage in a fierce sword fight, but Prince Ian begins to realize that Tolio is just parrying his attacks. As Prince Ian is caught off guard, Tolio takes advantage and overpowers him. Irene becomes worried but Princess Ingrid reassures her that Prince Ian is not an ordinary human. As the battle continued, Alan arrived just in time to save Prince Ian. He attempted to slash Tolio but was dodged. Alan then proposed that they work together to take on Tolio. Alan's attack managed to injure Tolio's face, causing him to be surprised as it had been a long time since he had been injured during a fight. Tolio then focused on defeating Alan first. Tolio then began to take the fight more seriously, using both his sword and shield. As the fight raged on, the scene shifted to Elkin's side, where he was suddenly ambushed from behind by someone. Elkin successfully dodged the attack and counterattacked, causing the attacker's weapon to slip from their hand. Elkin realized that the attacker was Vincent. As a knight of Alvas, Elkin reminded Vincent that the aura of a warrior is not easily forgotten. Vincent was surprised to be recognized and planned to get rid of Elkin first. They engaged in battle, but the scene shifted back to Alan's side of the fight. As Alan and Prince Ian launched their attack, they were at a disadvantage as Carta was unable to assist them and Elkin was occupied with Vincent. Despite facing Tolio from two sides, their attacks were still easily dodged by Tolio, and he quickly moved behind Prince Ian and attacked him. Prince Ian managed to block the attack, but his sword was broken in the process. Tolio then turned his attention to Alan. As Tolio was about to swing his sword at Alan, Prince Ian grabbed Tolio's hand and asked Alan to attack him. However, just as Alan was about to strike, Tolio twisted Prince Ian's body and threw him at Alan. Tolio then delivered a powerful blow to Alan's hand, causing him to be thrown back. Tolio then rendered Prince Ian unconscious. Elkin, noticing Alan's condition, attempted to aid him but was blocked by Vincent, who refused to let him pass easily. Tolio, believing he had won, approached the women but was surprised to see Alan still standing despite his injuries. As Alan struggled to stand, he told Tolio that he had faced something much more terrifying than him before. Tolio was confused by Alan's words, but Alan went on to explain that while Tolio may have been strong, he was no match for the powerful Troll King who had evened out half of the demon units. He also mentioned that Raven, now in possession of an immortal body, was even stronger. Tolio was taken aback by Alan's revelation, but he couldn't help but notice that Alan's right hand, which should have been injured, was still able to move. Princess Ingrid asked Irene if she had ever seen such a thing before, but Irene replied that Alan had simply not experienced that situation before. Tolio then launched an attack on Alan, but Alan was able to move quickly and dodge his attacks. He realized that Tolio was using a technique called the Ratchuan sword technique, which originated from the city of Ratchuan, built by ancient dwarves over the sea. But unfortunately, the city was overrun by orcs a few years ago, and now it was the kingdom of the greatest orcs. With some discoveries from the archipelago, and the shield that the dwarves made, they had created a unique sword technique like Tolio was using. Alan also pointed out that the technique Tolio used to rotate Prince Ian's body was the same as the one Elkin had used in the fight with Sir Killian back then. The scene returns to the intense battle. Alan begins to suspect that Tolio may be a half-orc, and as the battle progresses, he and his companions start to gain the upper hand. Tolio, realizing that Prince Ian is not yet dead, becomes desperate to end the fight quickly. He speaks to Alan, praising his skills but also expressing his intention to kill Prince Ian first. However, as he approaches Prince Ian, the prince suddenly wakes up and grabs a broken bottle, aiming it at Tolio's eyes. In response, Tolio releases his grip on Prince Ian's leg. Just as Tolio is distracted, Alan takes advantage of the opportunity and attacks him with all his power, causing a powerful aura explosion. The fierce battle between Alan and Tolio was intense, as Tolio managed to withstand Alan's attacks and destroy his sword. But Alan was quick on his feet and caught Tolio's hand, locking it in with his feet. Tolio's body was slammed by Alan, just as he had done to Prince Ian. However, Alan was able to clasp Tolio's thumbs and break them, causing Tolio to fall with surprise. Alan took advantage of the opportunity and locked Tolio. Meanwhile, Elkin and Vincent's fight was also intense. Vincent was starting to struggle against Elkin's fighting style, and at one moment, Elkin managed to attack and destroy Vincent's sword. Elkin declared that Vincent's sword was better suited for killing quietly. Vincent panicked as his weapon was destroyed and his tattoo on his right arm was revealed. He tried to cover it up as they heard a loud scream. Vincent wondered what the sound was and started to panic when he realized it was from Tolio. As the battle continued, Carta managed to defeat all the Ratchuan orcs from the Dark King with a victorious scream. Vincent, seeing this, panicked and decided to flee the scene. Elkin made the decision to not pursue Vincent, and instead head upstairs to assist Alan and Prince Ian in their fight against Tolio. The tide of the battle had turned in Alan's favor as he managed to retrieve Tolio's sword. Tolio was furious, cursing that lowly creatures like them should not have been able to defeat him. But just as he was about to give up, Carta and Elkin came to the rescue and helped turn the tide of the battle. Tolio, growing increasingly desperate, made a desperate move by throwing his shield towards Prince Ian. Alan managed to kick the shield, but it was all a ruse so that Tolio could escape by reaching the window. Before he left, he gave Alan a menacing threat that he would slash his head off when they met again. Tolio jumped out of the window and summoned his griffin to make his escape. In the midst of the battle, Alan is not focused on pursuing Tolio. Elkin informs him that Vincent had fought against them earlier, and Alan is surprised by this revelation. Prince Ian is extremely frustrated with Governor Count Segunda, but Alan reminds him that they have no concrete evidence to implicate him. He then turns to Elkin and asks if Vincent was a formidable opponent. Elkin responds that they are evenly matched in terms of strength. He also mentions that Vincent has a tattoo of a tower on his arm, which surprises Alan. The scene then shifts to the Duchess, who is at the villa, surrounded by orc troops and griffin riders. The scene briefly cuts to Tolio, who is on his way to the villa. Suddenly, Governor Count Segunda appears and blocks his path. The governor is furious and blames Tolio for the destruction of his home and the failure to capture his target. Tolio remains calm and informs the governor that he had already severely injured Alan and Prince Ian, and that he will leave the rest to the witch doctor. The mention of the witch doctor causes Governor Count Segunda to become visibly terrified. Tolio reveals that he had sent the witch doctor and the orcs to kidnap the Duchess at the governor's request. He also mentions that the witch doctor has the ability to brainwash people, and that if he had been there earlier, Alan and Prince Ian would have been defeated. But due to the governor's greed and desire for power, he had sent the witch doctor to the villa, resulting in his failure. Governor Count Segunda, now scared, attempts to stop Tolio from leaving, but it is too late. Tolio, using his finger to strike him down. Tolio explained that he had to harm the governor in order to avoid suspicion. He then proceeded to step on Governor Count Segunda's foot and snatched his belongings as payment before leaving him alone and vulnerable. Meanwhile, back at Alan's Inn, a fierce battle was taking place between the griffins and orcs. Tolio's orcs were caught off guard by the overwhelming numbers of Alan's forces, but they were able to secure victory with the help of Kratul. As they emerged victorious, they discovered that an enemy spy had been observing the fight. They were taken aback when they learned that the Pendragon family had led an attack on the orcs' troops on the archipelago. The witch doctor, Galota, credited their success to reinforcement spells. As he ate a centipede, he boasted that there may be other magicians as powerful as him, but none as strong. It was later revealed that the attack was merely a decoy, and the real objective was to kidnap the Duchess. Galota used his magic orb to locate her whereabouts, and upon sensing her fear, he knew she had been captured. Desperate for safety, he sought refuge with the servant and the underling monsters of Alan. The Duchess, who was present, tried to calm everyone down, assuring them that their troops were battling back against the enemy. Suddenly, the thick iron door before them was hit with a fiery attack, causing it to melt. The Duchess was shocked, as the door was incredibly sturdy. Just then, Galota and his subordinates entered, demanding that the Duchess surrender herself. He threatened to melt them all, like the door, if they refused. The Duchess, fearing for her safety and that of her companions, complied with the demands. She was aware that it was Governor Count Segunda who had ordered her arrest. Galota instructed the Duchess to remain silent, and used his magic to capture her. He bound her tightly, like a mummy, and ordered his subordinates to take her away. The two pirates thought they had captured the Duchess with ease, but they were caught off guard by a sudden attack. The attack was not only aimed at these two pirates, but also the rest of the pirate crew, except for Galota. Galota was surprised to see that Sol was the one who carried out the attack. Galota was taken aback when he realized that the attack was from an aura sword. He became terrified as he realized the person in front of him was a dragon. However, before he could say more, Sol swiftly cut Galota's head in half. The scene then shifts to Alan's location. They were on their way back, using a horse-drawn cart. Inside, they were treating their wounds from the previous battle. Prince Ian then asked Alan how his body was able to move after being hit by Tolio's attack. Alan explained that it was the power of the white dragon that had allowed him to survive. Prince Ian accepted Alan's explanation, but little Luna had her doubts. The scene then shows the squad of Villa Alan victorious, having successfully defeated an attacking army. Everyone is in high spirits, and the Duchess approaches Sol, who is with the Griffins. She expresses her gratitude to Sol for saving her and mentions that if Alan had told her to protect her, she would have done so. The Duchess then recalls a time when she had seen Sol in her human form, before Gordon Pendragon became Soldrake's contractor. She admits to feeling envious of Sol at the time, as her form was larger, more beautiful, and stronger than most women. However, the Duchess says she now understands Sol's feelings and, bowing, asks her to continue looking after Alan. She reveals a surprising fact, that the current Alan is not her son, but despite that, she says she will always love him as a mother. The Duchess expresses her love for Alan, to which Sol replies that of all of her contractors, Alan is the one she loves the most. Suddenly, Alan and another person arrive, calling out to the Duchess in concern. Alan asks if his mother is alright, and the Duchess reassures him that she is fine. He then turns to Irene, who also assures him that everything is okay and nothing has happened. The Duchess embraces Alan, relieved that he has returned, and congratulates him. But it turns out that this was just Alan's imagination. As they all say goodnight to Alan, he sees Lindsay and realizes something. He embraces Lindsay and speaks to her sweetly, like a husband. He also asks Luna to rest, but she insists on talking to him right away. During his trip, Luna had seen Carta and others huddled together, mourning the loss of their siblings in battle. But instead of being sad, they were happy that their brothers had died in battle. Carta requests Kratul to send the remains of their brothers to the gods of earth, and Kratul obliges by casting magic in the form of flowers that cover their bodies. The group begins to dance on the flowers, and Luna notes that the ceremony is both beautiful and sad. Alan explains that only those who have fought and died alongside them are allowed to witness the ceremony, as it is the highest grade of funeral rite they receive. He also reveals that originally, they were not going to show this ceremony to other races and that they consider Alan and the others as their family. Luna understands Alan's point, and he asks them both to find a quiet place to talk because Luna wants to say something. When they find a suitable place, Luna apologizes for canceling their engagement, but Alan interrupts and apologizes for not having the same feelings. Luna becomes sad and explains that she understands because she used to treat Alan very roughly before, but now that Alan has been successful, she wants to come closer. Alan spoke up, expressing that he had never entertained such thoughts before and that emotions had no place in his life. He went on to mention that he would have said the same thing to any woman who attempted to seduce him. Embarrassed, he apologized to Luna and suggested she take a break. Unbeknownst to Alan, Princess Ingrid was listening in on the conversation. He then repeated his sentiment to Ingrid. Though he stated that he had no room for feelings, Alan couldn't help but imagine being embraced by the Duchess. However, he quickly realized that this was not a feasible reality, and resolved to return home to Sisek. The scene shifts to the morning at Lewis Trade, where a group of men were discussing the previous day's riots, which had involved multiple parties. They were amazed that the notorious orcs of the archipelago had been defeated by the Pendragons. Among them was Vincent, who was listening in on the conversation. He reflected on the events of the previous day, when the archipelago orcs were defeated by a single Ancona orc, Elkin, who had managed to corner them. Just as Vincent was lost in thought, a man called him President Ron. The man mentioned that a very promising business opportunity was on its way, and that the whole town was talking about it. He added that Alan Pendragon was in Luz, and the news of his arrival took Vincent by surprise. The scene then shows Alan visiting Vincent at his home. They were catching up and having a casual conversation when Vincent offered Alan a drink. However, as Alan reached for the drink, Vincent suddenly dropped it and lunged at Alan. But Alan was able to quickly dodge the attack. The two men then stood facing each other, both catching their breath. They looked at each other and complimented each other's abilities. In a fit of rage, Vincent exclaimed that Alan would never be able to defeat him because he still had a purpose in life. Alan then responded by saying that Vincent's true purpose was to use his influence to reduce economic disparity in the Empire. Vincent was taken aback by Alan's words and listened as Alan explained that his intention was not to arrest or kill Vincent, but to buy him out. Now Alan knew Vincent's true identity as the master of the Tower of Dusk, Ron Vincent. Vincent appeared surprised by what Alan had just revealed to him. Alan explained that the Tower of Dusk was made up of members who had tattoos of towers on their arms, each one of them being exceptionally skilled in various fields. The leader of this group was known as the Master. Alan then revealed that Vincent's plan was to gather strength from small and medium traders, and then use that strength to suppress the nobles and wholesalers, disrupting their main source of income and preventing them from becoming too powerful. Vincent was confused as to how Alan knew the details of his plan, as he had never shared it with anyone before. He looked at Alan with a confused expression, but Alan simply smiled and muttered that Vincent was planning something really big. It turns out that Vincent was one of the heroes that Alan knew from the future, known as Grey Afterglow of the Sunset. Alan then asked Vincent why he would work under someone like Governor Count Segunda. Vincent explained that the governor was willing to cooperate with him regardless of social status, and that he had been able to skillfully use this to improve the economy of the city of Luz, allowing its residents to become wealthy. But Alan pointed out that it was also because of this that the governor had tried to kill him and Prince Ian, and possibly other princes in the Empire of Zion. Vincent shrugged off the matter, saying that he didn't care about the affairs of the nobility. He said that his goal was simply to create wealth and security for all. He also said that all nobles were more or less the same as Governor Count Segunda. Alan then asked if this applied to himself as well. Vincent said that he still did not know that. Alan then invited Vincent to come to the Pendragon residence, and judge for himself whether he thought everything was done for the sake of public interest. He said that if Vincent thought this was the case, he could do as he pleased. After hearing Alan's words, Vincent was silent for a moment before smiling and saying that he would work with Alan. Alan replied that he was looking forward to it, and with that, he left Vincent. The scene shifts to Alan and Prince Ian at their residence, enjoying a casual conversation while sipping on drinks. Prince Ian expresses his concern about Alan potentially taking his sister, Princess Ingrid, but Alan reassures him and changes the topic to their upcoming trip to Sisek. He mentions that he has invited Elkin and Sol to join them, to which Prince Ian expresses surprise but trusts Alan's judgment, recognizing the strength he and Elkin displayed in the previous day's battle. He also acknowledges that Sol is even stronger than Alan and Elkin, and muses on the mysterious Tolio, wondering about his true identity and intentions. Prince Ian suggesting that Tolio was not an ordinary person. Alan, however, believed that Tolio was likely a mix of human and orc. Tolio had also mastered martial arts from the south. Prince Ian surmised that there were more enemies behind Governor Count Segunda, who was responsible for the incident. Suddenly, Alan expressed his gratitude for Prince Ian's presence, catching him off guard. Alan added that he would have lost if it weren't for him. Prince Ian was confused as to why Alan was acting so differently, and asked if something was wrong. But before he could get an answer, Prince Ian quickly changed the subject, telling Alan they needed to leave the Villa Pendragon in the morning to search for Geoffrey in the Imperial Castle. Alan added that he believed Geoffrey would become the Emperor in the future. Both Alan and Prince Ian warned each other to be careful, as their enemies were everywhere. The next day, Princess Ingrid, Luna, and Prince Ian left Villa Pendragon, and as they looked back, they saw a moderate Vincent paying attention to them before leaving as well. Governor Count Segunda was in a state of panic. His plan to kill Prince Ian had failed, and Vincent was still missing. He was also unable to secure the Duchess. In his distress, he realized that he had to hurry up and secure Geoffrey as heir to the throne, but worried that if Alan succeeded in finding evidence of his attempt to kill the Prince of Zion in Sisek, his promised future would disappear and everything would change. He decided that he had to tell someone about this immediately. The scene then shifts to the Sisek area, where two people are being chased by flying monsters. They apologize for coming to the cursed land. Just as the monsters are about to attack, an arrow strikes one of them, and from above, 3 people appear to aid the 2 men. The man who had shot the arrow earlier was Elkin. The monster then attacked Alan's group, but Alan quickly jumped and slashed it to death, revealing his new appearance in disguise. The 2 men thought that Alan and his group were mercenaries and panicked, fearing that Alan would take their money. Alan reassured them that he was only testing his sword and they were relieved. They asked Alan for his name, and he replied that it was Raven. Alan then asked Sol and Elkin to continue their journey. The scene then shifts to a lively bar in the Sisek area, where mercenaries gather. The bar was called Elma Bar and Alan and his group were there, taking a break. A waiter came to take their order and Alan asked for some food and to see the specials menu. Their orders arrived and Elkin said he didn't expect to eat such delicious food after leaving the south. Alan explained that the Sisek area, surrounded by mountains, received a lot of rain, which made for good food. As they ate their meals, Elkin couldn't help but be impressed by Alan's knowledge of the Sisek area. Alan explained that the area was known as the Cursed Land, because it was overrun by mercenaries and demons. The situation had begun 10 years ago, when the ruler of Sisek, Count Dreschia, had purchased the land with a large sum of money. However, because he had spent so much on the purchase, he was unable to afford the cost of defending the area, which led to its downfall. Count Dreschia had then relied on hiring mercenaries, including the Vault family, to maintain security in the area. But as Alan had previously mentioned, the Vault family had been falsely accused of rebellion and all of its members were slaughtered, leaving only Raven, who was now known as Alan, alive. As they were discussing this, a man was suddenly thrown onto their table by a woman he had seduced. The man's anger boiled over and he lunged at the girl, but Elkin quickly intervened with a lightning strike that sent the man crashing to the ground. Elkin was furious that his meal had been wasted by the altercation. Just then, another man approached and apologized for the girl's behavior. As a gesture of goodwill, he offered to treat Alan and his group to a meal. He introduced himself as Jonathan Beer's son, or Jody for short. He also introduced his companions, Gus and Scylla, the woman from earlier. Jody then asked for Alan's name, explaining that as mercenaries, it was important to have good connections. He asked if Alan and his group were mercenaries like himself. Alan revealed that his name was Raven and introduced Elkin and Sol as his brother and wife, respectively. Jody was surprised to learn that they were a family of mercenaries. He asked what had brought Alan to the Sisek area. Suddenly, Scylla playfully asked if Elkin was single. As they continued to eat, Scylla made a suggestion to trade Elkin for Gus, which caused Gus to become irritated with Scylla's attitude. But Elkin paid no attention to the comment and continued to eat. Jody was embarrassed and apologized to Alan again for the behavior of his team members. Alan then asked about the news of the ruler of Sisek, who was looking for mercenaries. He also asked if the ruler was Ruv Tylan, the man who had put Alan in the hunter's camp. Jody was taken aback as he felt a strong pressure coming from Alan. He confirmed Alan's words, revealing that he and his crew were planning to meet with Ruv Tylan because the pay was good. Alan then told Elkin and Sol that they were leaving to meet with Ruv Tylan, the Lord of Sisek. Suddenly, they were all in shock. Alan then spoke up, telling Elkin that they had found a valuable colleague, so it didn't matter anymore. Elkin snapped back, but remained silent. Scylla, who had been flirting with Elkin, happily took his hand, calling him husband. Elkin felt uneasy with her behavior. Scylla reassured him that she could fight and do things, and that she would teach him everything. Alan then turned to Jody and said that it seemed like they were meant to meet. Jody was glad to hear Alan's words. Elkin, however, was feeling increasingly stressed. The scene shifted to Elkin being questioned about the meaning of Alan's words. He asked why they had to go with Jody's troop. Alan explained that they needed to gather information and that it would be easier to disguise themselves if they traveled with Jody's group. He also added that Sol drew too much attention and that the more attention they attracted, the more difficult it would be for them to move around. Alan emphasized that this was all for the sake of their true cause. This is the end of Part 5. The sixth part of White Dragon Duke Pendragon begins by showing Sol and Alan are having a conversation, with Sol revealing that Ruv Tylan is the one who framed him and brought down the Vault family. Alan is taken aback, feeling that Sol might have already read his memory. He recalls a traumatic event from his past, when he was still known as Raven. In a flashback, Raven was approached by Ruv Tylan, who promised to recommend him as a knight of the Brescia family. Eager for the opportunity, Raven accepted a letter from Ruv Tylan to deliver to a guest. Excited about his future prospects, Raven shared the news with his father and brother, who were also proud and believed in Ruv Tylan's trust as a subordinate of the Count. However, their joy was short-lived as the next day warriors from the Brescia family accused the Raven family of betrayal. Raven and his family were left confused and stunned by the sudden turn of events. The Raven family believed they had been framed when they discovered that the letter they delivered, addressed to Prince Zion, was poisoned with ink that evaporated along with the prince. Raven realized there must have been magic involved in the letter. The scene then shifted back to Raven's story, who, along with his whole family, was cruelly tortured for delivering the deadly letter. Ruv Tylan later approached Raven, informing him that his father, Grey Vault, had confessed to accepting 5 gold bars to exchange the letter with an assassination attempt. Raven was taken aback by this revelation, but Ruv Tylan continued to badmouth Grey Vault in front of him. Angered by the lies Ruv Tylan was spreading, Raven countered that Ruv Tylan was the one responsible for everything. However, Ruv Tylan retorted by asking whose words would be more trusted, those of the Count Brescia or a son of a low-status family. Ruv Tylan taunted Raven, saying that even a child would know the answer to whose words were more trustworthy. Raven's anger reached its boiling point, but Ruv Tylan offered a solution. If Raven survived 10 years in the demon unit in the hunter camp, his crimes would be forgiven. Ruv Tylan added that Raven should be grateful for his father's confession. However, Raven was determined to survive the demon unit and change Ruv Tylan. The scene then returned to Alan, who revealed that his father had lied and managed to save himself. He explained that because of his actions in exchanging the letter, all the members of the Vault family were trapped and hanged, except for himself. While exuding his powerful dragon aura, Alan declared that they would sneak up on Ruv Tylan and force him to confess to his crimes. Alan was consumed with anger, vowing to find out who was behind everything and bring them to justice. As Alan's dragon aura grew even stronger, Sol was shocked by its intensity. The scene then shifts to Jody and his companions. Gus questioned their decision to join forces with Alan and his group, to which Scylla responded by saying if Gus didn't like it, he could go to Ruv Tylan's alone. Gus became frustrated with Scylla's comment, pointing out that Alan's group seemed far from ordinary, especially Sol, who couldn't even speak or hear. Jody shared that Alan considers Sol to be the strongest of their group. Gus skeptically questioned this claim, but Jody was confident that there were still many mysterious things in the world. He added that his intuition had never been wrong. As they continued their journey to Rev Thailand's residence, Alan asked Jody for an estimated time of arrival. Jody estimated that it would take about half a day if they started from Elmabar. Suddenly, they came across a commotion at the castle gate. It was a horse carriage belonging to the Brescia family. A guard asked everyone to step aside as the young miss of the Brescia family, Princess Sophia, was arriving. The guard boasted that Princess Sophia was the most beautiful woman in the kingdom of Sikik. Princess Sophia corrected the guard and asked that he mention that she was the most beautiful woman in the entire kingdom, not just in Sikik. Jody and the group were walking alongside Princess Sophia and her entourage. Scylla expressed her surprise over the rumors about Princess Sophie being rude and unattractive, stating that she was far less attractive than the princess. However, Gus disagreed. Jody asked Alan to avoid any confrontation with the nobles, but Alan instead approached Princess Sophia's carriage. This made Jody anxious and nervous, but Sol managed to calm Alan down by grabbing his hand and reminding him that now was not the time for his anger. Princess Sophia then called out to Alan and insulted him, calling him a trash mercenary, and demanded an apology. Jody and the group were worried they would get into trouble, but Princess Sophia's personal bodyguard reminded her of her attitude. Princess Sophia arrogantly ordered her soldiers to capture Alan and make him submit, but Elkin swiftly intervened. Elkin was able to take down 3 soldiers at once with ease, stating that they would have to go through him first if they wanted to catch Alan. He then brandished his sword, causing Princess Sophia to become frightened and cry. Despite Alan's plea for Elkin to stop, he continued his attack on the princess. However, her bodyguards were able to restrain Elkin. Alan and Princess Sophia were both surprised that the bodyguards were able to withstand Elkin's attack. The bodyguards apologized for the misbehavior and explained that Elkin was a Knight of Valvas, a group known to kill anyone who wields a sword against their master, regardless of their nobility or royalty status. Elkin looked at Princess Sophia sternly and warned her not to boast about her family, as there was still much he did not know about the world. The bodyguard praised Elkin for his exceptional strength and asked for his name, but Elkin declined to give it to just anyone. The guard respected Elkin's decision and the group left, with Princess Sophia threatening to report the incident to her father. Alan appeared to know the bodyguard, who was Knight Commander Fillmore, and remembered him as a fearsome fighter from his youth. Alan used to wish for a body like Fillmore's, but was disappointed that such a talented person had to serve someone like Count Brescia. As everyone approached Elkin, especially Scylla, who grew even more intrigued by him after learning he was the Knight of Valvas, Gus realized that if Elkin was a Knight of Valvas, he would not follow someone weaker than him. This led Gus to understand that Alan was not just a random person. He told Jody that his intuition was right this time, making Jody happy. Soon, they arrived at the front residence of Rev Thailand. Rev asked if they wanted to become his mercenaries and Jody answered affirmatively, saying they were also skilled in battle tactics. Scylla added that as long as they were paid after completing the mission, they would be satisfied. Gus also stated that this did not mean they would be under Rev Thailand. Rev replied that they were impressive for daring to speak so boldly. He then gave them a test, which was to hunt some monsters at the end of the border of his territory, the Manhwa area. Alan was surprised to hear the name Manhwa village in Elkin, and Sol noticed his expression. Alan muttered that Manhwa village was his hometown, a village once patronized by the Vault family. Jody's group successfully fought off some monsters, impressing the soldiers accompanying them. Then, it was Alan's group's turn to showcase their skills. Elkin, wielding his staff, easily defeated one of the large monsters with a single hit, leaving the soldiers in awe. However, a monster in the form of a bear tried to attack Elkin, but Alan quickly stepped in and killed it with a stab to the eye and a shot to the head. Sol then joined in, slicing the monsters into pieces, causing the soldiers to be horrified by Sol's sadistic actions. After they completed their task, the group rested and ate together. Scylla complimented the group for making the soldiers earlier dumbfounded. Gus optimistically stated that with their abilities, they would surely escape the test. Jody was happy to be working with Alan's group but noticed Alan had a concerned expression. When asked, Alan revealed that he was just aware of the conditions of the residents in the area and expressed apprehension at their poverty. Jody explained that they were not farmers. Alan was confused by Jody's explanation that the residents of the area were considered low caste or even slaves. Jody explained that after the Brescia family bought the territory, they used half of their wealth to regain their wealth, which resulted in a slave system being created after they raised taxes significantly. People who lost all of their property were forced into slavery. Gus expressed his disgust at the nobles' actions, but Scylla warned him to keep his voice down to avoid being caught. Alan added that the area wasn't like this when his father was in power. The rain began to fall and Alan stood up, expressing a desire to be alone. Jody asked him not to go anywhere because of the rain, but Alan insisted and left to visit the former residence of his family, which was now the residence of the Vault family, and had been leveled to the ground. It was evident that Alan was sad to see the place in its current state. The sun was shining bright when Sol approached Alan, who was taken aback by Sol's sudden appearance. Sol, worried about Alan's behavior since they arrived in Sisek, explained that their soul contract allowed him to sense Alan's strange behavior. Alan remained silent, listening to Sol's words, as he made his way to a group of tombstones. Sol asked if this was the resting place of Alan's family. With a heavy heart, Alan confirmed that the graves belonged to his father, Grave Vault, his brother, Reed Vault, and his mother, Sheena Vault. He shared that the family was accused of treason, and this tomb was likely created by Ruv Tylan. Just as they were pondering who could have made this tomb, a man approached them. At first, Alan thought it was just a resident, but upon closer inspection, he realized it was Sir Remelda, a servant of the Vault family. Sir Remelda asked why they were there, questioning if they were laughing at the Vault family who were deemed as traitors. Sir Remelda spoke up, insisting that the charges against the Vault family were unjust, as he had worked closely with them until the end and observed no change in Grey Vault's character. Alan was moved by Sir Remelda's words and expressed his belief that the Vault family were honorable warriors who protected the citizens, and that the accusations of treason were a mistake. Sir Remelda was grateful for Alan's understanding and broke down in tears. When asked if he created the tomb, Sir Remelda confirmed that he wanted to give the Vault family a proper burial. He spoke of their kindness and generosity, but things changed when their son, Reed Vault, was sent to the Brescia residence to deliver letters. Alan was taken aback by this information, as he thought he was supposed to have sent the letters himself. He asked Sir Remelda if it wasn't Raven Vault who sent the letters. Sir Remelda was taken aback by Alan's mention of Raven Vault, as he was unaware of a second child in the Vault family. He insisted that the Vault family only consisted of 3 members. This news left Alan stunned and confused. He remembered his goal of raising his family, and now, he realized that he may not even exist in this world. The weight of this realization caused Alan to become dizzy, and he collapsed. Sol tried to calm Alan, while Sir Remelda left them, and apparently, Elkin saw the incident and was shocked, snapping before breaking down in Sol's arms. The scene shifted to where Princess Sophia and her entourage were located. The princess was still annoyed by the behavior she was receiving from her entourage, especially Alan. She planned to retaliate against their actions. Knight Commander Fillmore advised her to calm down, but this only made Princess Sophia angrier. She declared that her father would obey all her commands. As the scene progresses, the group is being watched from above by the Baltai commander. It becomes evident that the commander has some sinister intentions for them. The next scene takes place at the Brescia family residence, where they are being attacked by a horde of monsters. The Knight Commander, Fillmore, quickly dispatches one of the monsters with ease. But to his surprise, even after beheading the monster, it continues to move and attack him. Confused, he cuts the monster into 2 pieces, but the head is still able to move on its own. A strange mark appears on the monster and starts to glow, but before it could do any harm, Fillmore steps on its head. He goes inside the residence to assess the situation and search for Princess Sophia. However, he is shocked to see that Commander Baltai is holding her hostage. The ruthless Commander Baltai warned Knight Commander Fillmore that he would have Princess Sophia's head chopped off if Fillmore made any sudden moves. Confused and unsure of Baltai's intentions, Fillmore asked for clarification. Baltai revealed that he intended to use Fillmore and Princess Sophia to carry out a murder without getting his own hands dirty. Despite the danger, Fillmore refused to be a pawn and begged for Princess Sophia's release. In a cruel twist, Baltai then demanded that Fillmore gouge out his own eyes. Fillmore was taken aback by the demand. But with no hesitation, he courageously chose to sacrifice his own sight for the safety of Princess Sophia. Baltai was shocked by the knight's selflessness and bravery. Commander Baltai let out a loud, victorious laugh. He praised Knight Commander Fillmore's loyalty to the Brescia family, but with a smirk, he declared that Fillmore was a fool. With ease, Commander Baltai beheaded Princess Sophia, and her head was caught by Fillmore. This made Fillmore very angry, and he attempted to attack Commander Baltai. But with one swift strike, Fillmore's head was severed. Commander Baltai taunted that it would be hard to defeat him without eyes. He then checked on the fallen Knight Commander, and declared that he would become a servant to the Brescia family. Commander Baltai then pulled out his magic wand and proclaimed that a new master would emerge. Using the wand, he cast a spell around the bodies of Fillmore and Sophia, causing their heads to reconnect to their bodies and bringing them back to life. Now under Commander Baltai's control, Princess Sophia and Knight Commander Fillmore knelt before him and referred to him as Master. The magic symbol of the monster was now evident on both of them. The story returns to Alan and his companion's dwelling, where Jody and the others are worried as Alan hasn't left his room since the recent event. They asked Elkin to explain, but, as usual, he remains silent. In Alan's room, he is still deeply disturbed and overwhelmed by the news he received. Meanwhile, Ruv Tylan expresses his curiosity about the strength of Alan and his team, as well as the soldiers accompanying them. His soldier informs him that they are comparable to high-class mercenaries, but the soldier mentions a small issue. Back at Alan's lodgings, Sol calls Alan, urging him to eat as he hasn't had a meal since the incident. However, Alan is consumed by frustration and despair, having lost all that he had fought for and feeling lost about his purpose in life. When he turns to Sol for answers, Sol is left speechless and can only apologize. The scene then shifts to the palace where the Lord of Sisek, Count Brescia, the father of Princess Sophia, is located. Count Brescia is musing about Princess Sophia, who lately has been acting distant. However, the two bodyguards in front of him assure him that she isn't usually like that. With this in mind, Count Brescia plans to gift Princess Sophia an extremely expensive diamond that could even be considered a royal treasure. The reason behind this is to justify his plan to raise taxes again. One of the soldiers protests against this proposal, but Count Brescia has already made up his mind to increase the taxes, and those who refuse to pay will be forced into slavery. He enlists Ruv Tylan to help spread the news quickly. Suddenly, a soldier rushes in to inform them that Princess Sophia has returned and Count Brescia is overjoyed. He hurries to greet her, but when he finally meets her, he is shocked to see that she has changed her style of dress. They remark on how she has transformed, and Count Brescia is left wondering why she is acting and dressing so differently from usual. Knight Commander Fillmore reported to Count Brescia about the complications encountered on their journey. He then summoned a soldier and asked for further information, revealing that Ruv Tylan was accused of rebellion. Count Brescia was shocked as he trusted Ruv, but Knight Commander Fillmore explained that Ruv had kidnapped Princess Sophia and attacked them on the way. He also mentioned that Ruv had been gathering mercenaries lately. Knight Commander Fillmore advised Count Brescia to act quickly and strike first before Ruv could attack. Count Brescia was conflicted, as he still trusted Ruv, but he couldn't ignore the evidence presented by Knight Commander Fillmore. He then showed the head of Commander Baltai, who had confessed to being a soldier killed by Ruv's assassin. Knight Commander Fillmore added that Ruv had tied up Princess Sophia and treated her disrespectfully. Princess Sophia stepped forward and showed the scar on her arm, pleading with her father to protect her from Ruv. Count Brescia was even more confused, but Princess Sophia's tearful plea moved him. He agreed to Knight Commander Fillmore's plan. Count Brescia rallied his soldiers, and Princess Sophia and Knight Commander Fillmore appeared, smiling because everything had gone according to plan. Princess Sophia expressed her love for her father, calling him the best dad. However, Commander Baltai arrived and admitted to fault. He revealed that thanks to Ruv Tylan, the evidence would be destroyed. The story shifts to the monster hunting grounds where Jody and his team are confronted by a dangerous creature. The monster snatches Scylla with its long tongue, and Jody and Gus soon find themselves in its grasp. Just as the monster is about to devour its prey, Elkin comes to the rescue and effortlessly cuts off the monster's tongues. This allows the three to escape, and with a swift strike, Elkin kills the monster by splitting its head in two. Jody, who is a Knight of Valvas, expresses his admiration for Elkin's unwavering determination. He notes that his skills are on another level. Scylla also wants to join in, expressing her desire to visit Valvas with Elkin in the future. Elkin is taken aback by her words, but then recalls his past experiences in Valvas where he had to fight against mercenaries and monsters, leaving him as the only survivor among the fallen. The memory still haunts him, and he says that Valvas is in a similar state as Sisek. Gus comments on their unexpected encounter with the monsters and how lucky they were to have Elkin there. Jody suggests that their lives would be easier if they became bodyguards for a wealthy family, bringing up the topic of the Pendragon family, who are known for their kindness to their troops and their reputation as heroes of Luz for defeating the orc pirate attack on Count Segunda's residence. The group continues to discuss the Allen family, with Jody mentioning rumors he's heard about their generosity. Scylla mentions the handsome Duke of Pendragon, Alan Pendragon, which elicits a tired response from Gus. Elkin remains silent, refusing to share his thoughts on the matter. Gus then expresses his aversion to serving royalty, but Jody points out that the territory is ruled by the Vault family, who are known to be different from other noble families. This catches Elkin's attention as he has heard the name before. Jody explains that the Vault family is at odds with Ruv Tylan and Count Brescia over slavery, and they have established their own army to protect the residents from monster attacks. Their heads of the families are regarded as powerful knights. Scylla asks if the Vault family is considered a rebel by Ruv Tylan, to which Jody replies that he is unsure of the details, but the family's reputation took a hit after being labeled as such. In the small village of Manhwa, there were still many residents who held the Vanti family in high regard, particularly the head of the family, who was known for being both kind and wise. Elkin couldn't help but feel pensive as he heard the stories about the Valtas family. Alan, too, was equally confused by the situation. Just then, a soldier arrived in a panic, urgently summoning Elkin and the others to assemble at the residence of Ruv Tylan. The reason for the sudden call to action was that Count Brescia and his army were headed there. Everyone was taken aback by the news, and soon enough, the soldiers of Count Brescia could be seen marching towards the residence of Ruv Tylan. The scene then shifts to Alan's room, where Elkin bursts in, telling Alan that it was time for them to go. Alan, who was feeling lethargic, asked Elkin about the events unfolding at Ruv Tylan. He reminded Elkin that soldiers had come to his room earlier, warning that if they didn't act, the plot to assassinate Prince Shaun would disappear. Elkin was there to ensure they acted. But Alan then dropped a bombshell, insisting that he was not Alan Pendragon, also known as Raven. He asked Elkin what he had to do with all of this, and why they needed to fight. Elkin was taken aback by Alan's confusing behavior, and even hit him in frustration. Sol, who witnessed the altercation, was shocked. Elkin approached Alan, who was now on the ground, grabbing him by the collar. He told Alan that the Alan Pendragon he had chosen to follow was not a weakling. Alan was taken aback by Elkin's words. Elkin then released his grip and said that Alan was acting differently than usual. Even Elkin had noticed this ever since they arrived in Sisek. Elkin revealed that something has been bothering Alan's mind ever since they arrived in Sisek. He also shared that Sisek is similar to his hometown, Valvas, which is made up of interconnected landmasses that are constantly at war because of corrupt leaders. The residents and soldiers are victims of this corruption. Elkin continued, explaining that the more enemies he kills, the less reason he has to fight. He had lost his will to live as a knight of Valvas until he met Alan. Alan was surprised by Elkin's words. Elkin then reminded Alan of his promise that Elkin would be his sword and Alan would be his master. He emphasized that they did not have different status, they simply had different roles. Elkin was willing to follow Alan because he was the first person who could easily beat him and say things like that. Alan finally realized the truth of Elkin's words, but argued that it was useless now because the Vault and Raven families no longer exist in this world. Elkin called out to Alan, but he still wouldn't budge. Frustrated, Elkin shouted Alan's real name, Raven, and the response was immediate. Elkin confessed to not knowing much about Alan's connection to the Vault family, but he had seen the power Alan displayed at the ruins of the Vault's residence. Elkin acknowledged that the Vault family was the only one fighting for the protection of the people in the area and was considered a formidable knight. Elkin felt the same way when he saw Alan captivate the attention of the Centaur troopers. Tired of Alan's denial, Elkin grabbed Alan's collar and told him that he was Alan Pendragon, and his strength was capable of changing the world. Alan realized that even though the Vault family was no longer there, their dream was still within him. Elkin asked how long Alan would let his sword rust, but Alan caught Elkin's hand before he could strike him again. With a smile, Alan commented that Elkin was more talkative today than usual. As Alan was filled with excitement, Elkin was happy and observed that Alan's mood was different than usual, which was usually sullen. Alan then voiced that he was tired of listening to Elkin's rambling, took a piece of bread from the table, and started eating. He then asked Sol for the dragon armor. Seeing Alan's excitement, Sol felt happy and grateful. The scene then shifted to Jody and friends who were discussing their plans to visit Ruv Tylan's residence. Gus argued that Raven would do the same if they were in the same situation. Jody agreed, as they knew that Ruv Tylan's enemy was Count Brescia, the ruler of the region. Suddenly, Alan appeared, apologizing for keeping Jody waiting. The three were stunned to see Alan in his new dragon armor, which was black. He asked them to join him on horseback to Ruv Tylan's place. Alan looked dashing in the black armor, complimenting his black hair. Scylla became intrigued by Alan's aura, while Gus was shocked to see the armor that Alan was wearing. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Gus asked if Alan was truly a mercenary. Alan confirmed and announced that he was on his way to Ruv Tylan's residence. Jody, Sol, and Elkin tried to convince Alan not to go as the enemy was dangerous. But Alan insisted that this was his own personal battle and he didn't want to involve them. After bidding farewell to Jody and the others, Alan rode off on his horse, accompanied by Sol and Elkin, towards Rav Tylan's location. Jody questioned Elkin's decision to join Alan and asked if he was certain. Elkin explained that as a sort of raven, he had to follow wherever Raven goes. Sol and Elkin then departed, leaving Jody and his partner behind. To everyone's surprise, Scylla also decided to join in, accompanying Elkin to assist Alan. Gus commented that Scylla was crazy, but Jody believed they owed a debt of gratitude to Alan and the others for their help in the past. Jody hopped on his horse, eager to catch up with the group. He had a gut feeling that if they split up from Raven now, they would regret it later. Jody rode off, leaving Gus alone. Gus was frustrated as he had no other option but to follow the group, cursing as he mounted his horse to catch up. As dusk approached, Alan and the others were nearing Rav Tylan's residence. As they journeyed, they came across the aftermath of a battle that had taken place. Houses were burned and many innocent lives were lost. Alan was deeply troubled by the sight, as he saw how war could harm innocent people. Elkin asked Alan about the raging conflict, and why it had started. Alan replied that he didn't think it was the character of Count Brescia to suddenly declare war. Even the soldiers of Rav Tylan seemed bewildered. Alan speculated that someone might have incited Count Brescia to attack. There could be someone who wants to get rid of Rav Tylan, possibly the person behind the assassination plot of the Prince of Zion. Alan suspected the involvement of Governor Count Segunda, or someone of high standing. As Elkin radiated a battle-ready energy, Alan warned him not to rashly attack the soldiers as they may only be following orders. Elkin appreciated Alan's words, and they continued on towards Rav Tylan's residence. However, upon arrival, they were shocked to find the residence burned and surrounded by soldiers from Brescia. Elkin thought it was too late, but Alan believed Rav Tylan could still be alive. So, the three of them split up to search for Rav Tylan. Suddenly, Jody and his group appeared and called out to them. With their arrival, their numbers increased and Alan praised Elkin's actions, earning the trust of Jody and his companions. Elkin smiled, grateful for the praise, and the group united to help Rav Tylan defeat Count Brescia. This is the end of part 6.